many times has this happened to you? Tired of chairs that don't have your back? Now there's a better way. Introducing the Smite Maxinomic chair, perfect for any occasion. Sitting, conversation starter. Sitting, game night with friends. Sitting, high-powered business meetings. Sitting, standing, sitting. Maxinomic chairs are complete with full positional settings, height adjustment, and rotation settings. There's no wrong way to sit as long as it's Maxinomic.
I'm Maxinomic, owner and operator of Maxinomic. Trust me, we've got your back.
Maxinomic is a paid ad and cannot be trusted. Don't delay. Order your customizable Maxinomic chair today. Rest assured, this chair has your name on it. Operation not saying.
The only thing better than Maxinomic is Ramsey actually sleeping, and that's what she's doing right now. Otherwise, she would be here selling this fantastic chair that I'm sitting in. Shout-outs, as always, to Maxinomic. And if you want to sit like this, go online to needforseat.com and grab yourself one. Also, shout-outs to Alienware, our sponsors here in Season 8 of the SPL. Make sure to go to smitegame.com/Alienware. One day I'll figure out how these directions work. Use code SmiteAW. Follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Alienware, and then check out AlienwareArena.com for giveaways and a whole bunch more. So thanks again to Alienware, our title sponsors here in Season 8 of the SPL. My name is Dolson. Mifflin is with me, the Glasses gang, today to round out this week in the SPL. Miff, I don't know, man, the Bolts, they beat the Dragons there on Friday. The Twitter world lights on fire here in the SPL, and then unfortunately show up a bit flat up against the Kings. You might be muted there, buddy. I don't know if you give me so much much ribbing in Discord about my mic before we go live.
Unmute.
Yes.
Enjoy this small victory, Dave. That will not last long. Anyway, got to talk about how sharp the Camelot Kings are looking. Not so much how flat the Olympus Bolts are looking. Man, they are coming in hot.
That's right. You're absolutely correct. The highlights need to be on the Camelot Kings after that one. They have won a few straight sets now, and as I mentioned, Captain Twig has not died in 6 straight sets. Here's a look back at this week in the SPL. Jade Dragons 2-1 fall on Friday to the Olympus Bolts. The only other 2-1 set we had was the Titans and the Oni Warriors. Olympus Bolts unable to replicate that performance just in our previous set. And the Jade Dragons, now you have to imagine Mifflin out for a little bit of blood. If they are able to win this set, they'll find themselves back tied for first place. The Camelot Kings have made a little bit of a surge here. And Miff, we thought that the Twitter world was going to be, quieted down by this point in the weekend, but it's literally been the exact opposite. So prior to this game, and the words are not bleeped on Twitter, you can go see the actual tweet at PandaCat's Twitter.
Good Lord.
Stop talking after winning your games. Talk it before like this, Zapman. You suck and you're getting soloed today. Unbelievable. And Miff, with the state of the duo lane, maybe we start to see some of that. And then Zapman replies and says, PandaCat has been saying he'll beat me the last 3 years at Worlds. One day it might be true. Maybe year 4 is your year, buddy. Good luck. Yeah, baby, we live for this. Look, we've talked about it at length. We love the trash talk, a little bit of that back and forth. And Miff, it's the hunters in this one that are getting after one another a little bit.
These guys have been at each other's throats for an entire year now, man. These guys have been beefing back and forth so much. I'm not even sure if they mean it anymore, but there were some fighting words coming from PandaCat, man. Speaking from my player experience, had anyone ever said that to me, I would have shirked into a cave, never to come out ever again, man. Those would crush me. Zapman, better hope you don't get solo today, or you better believe PandaCat's going to fire back again.
Yeah, look, I am praying for some 1v1 attempts at least over in the duo lane. You have to now, right? And when it becomes a solo lane, I want to see Hunter 1v1s. I don't want any of the supports over there between these two. But the focus, I think, Mifflin, coming off of the Jade Dragons loss, was put on Hurrywind. A lot of it in part due to the Twitter kind of fire that lit up there. And it was kind of the first slow performance we saw from Hurrywind so far this year. He got 2 kills in Game 1 against the Bolts, and then 0 and 0 in the kills department in Games 2 and 3 when the Bolts were able to win. What's your take on Hurrywind? How's he playing at the moment? You expect a bounce back here today?
I'm not even sure that it's going to be an individual bounce back. Sure, Hurrywind did earn a title, a new nickname from that last set. I think it was Salty Tower Boy. Couldn't say definitively, not like I don't read that tweet every single night before I go to bed. But when a team is struggling
nice.
like the Jade Dragons were in both games 2 and 3, the entire team starts to look a lot worse going forward throughout the entirety of the match. So I think Hurrywind may have been stuck in his tower for a little bit, but it wasn't entirely his fault. It's not going to be too bad. It's not going to be that much of a bounce back required. I think, if anything, the whole team resets, and the whole team is going to look a lot better.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we show Hurrywind there because, again, of all the fiery spiciness that brought itself onto Twitter, but it's a full team effort now for the Jade Dragons to turn around, and that might be a scary thought for the Scarabs team. I don't want to face an angry Jade Dragons at any point, but we've heard from the Scarabs team that they're focused on building and moving forward. You know, it's just Phase 1. We're halfway done with Phase 1. There's a whole year of SPL to work through, and this is a team that is looking to improve as the year goes on. Their eyes were on the Smite World Championships, you know, however many months away that might be. And look, one of the guys who's going to have a focal point on him here today is Baronic out of the mid lane. There's some God Pool carryover there, Mifflin, and it's going to be an interesting matchup up against Hurrywind.
It will be. Baronic and Hurrywind both like that Yanis pick, but I think that Baronic has a couple other picks that we haven't quite seen just yet. I had some experience playing against this guy way back on the console days, and he had gods like Ra in the back pocket. He was playing things like Agni as well. Even the Raijin, which we have seen a little bit, and you're seeing in this clip right now, is something that he can lean back on. So I'm not sure that he should be too concerned about his God Pool being banned out or taken away. Instead, it's more so about playing around these side lanes. Baronic is a guy who I think may suffer from the sit in lane a little bit too long mentality, almost like some of these hunters in Season 8 don't want to leave until level 20. Baronic, I think, may have fallen into those trappings. If he's able to rotate out a little bit more consistently and make his pressure known and make plays like that, it's going to be a completely different narrative around this guy.
Look, even in a loss to the Kings, Baronic played the Tiamat in the second game of that set, 3-1-2, so in a loss, a respectable KDA. Baronic has played 5 gods in the last 6 games. Only the Tiamat has been repeated. Chang'e's in there, Raijin, Merlin, Ra. This Scarabs team is starting to figure out their identity maybe a little bit here, Mifflin. That's kind of the vibe I'm starting to get from this crew. But in the same way that the Jade Dragons are going to need a bit of a bounce back, the whole Scarabs team will as well to surge themselves forward and start finding some wins on a consistent basis. Speaking of Baronic, Baronic is here for the pregame interview prior to maybe the biggest set of the year so far. Baronic, thanks so much for sitting down with us. I want to start off kind of where Mifflin and I dropped off there. You're going up against Hurrywind here today. Is there anything extra in this for you after all the Twitter beef that was going on earlier in the weekend? Or are you just focused on your own game plan? You're not concerned about who you're playing against? The Scarabs are just going to work together regardless of the opponent.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, personally, I've never gotten into, much Twitter beef, whatever. Like, I just focus on myself.
Right.
But, yeah, I just focus on myself most of the time, especially me being as a rookie, there's a ton to prove for me. I took a break latter half of last year, and I'm just really focused on, doing whatever I can to provide for my team.
Love that. Yep.
Because there's so much potential on this team. I'm telling you, like, our performances recently haven't been shown. That's the case at all, honestly. But scrims have been like very productive, and I think it's just on us showing up on game day. To be honest, and as rookies, that's
Right,
we just got to get comfortable. I don't think it's exactly. I don't think it's necessarily us being nervous. It's just us getting comfortable, and playing our game. So
totally understood.
New
getting
team,
reps in.
Got to start working together a little bit more.
Exactly.
Working with your veterans. Well, Baronic, I'm gonna give you an easier question, man. I'm not gonna throw the beef question at you like Dave did here.
Hey, I like that question.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
the prior half of last year, you're playing over at the SOC level. You saw a moderate amount of success over there. How's the transition been? How's the competition felt moving up into the SPL? Or even, if you want to even go further back, how's it feel comparing it to your console days?
Well, for me in layers, it's very different from going number one, like undisputed console team for 3 years straight to SPL rookies. Very, very. The amount of the skill level is, crazy different. Even in SEC compared, and I and
You have to roast
and
them.
I think what I like the most about SPL is most of the time, scrims are way more productive.
Sure.
And that's one thing I've always loved, or I really think is very important in a team, is to take scrims and practice, I guess, seriously. Obviously have your fun, whatever, but
sure.
Focus on the same goal.
Agreed. Well, look, Veronica, I love the answers I'm hearing out of you guys. Your mind's in the right place. Keep that head down. Keep working away, and the wins will start to flow for this team. Thanks so much for sitting down with us, and best of luck here against the Dragons.
Thank you so much, man.
Hey, and look, if you like the jersey that Veronica is wearing there, you can grab one for yourself as well at shop.smiteproleague.com. Inside Apparel Company has furnished all of the jerseys for our SPL players this year, as well as all the jerseys that everyone at home has been wearing for themselves, and they all look great. We got cotton t-shirts, cotton hoodies, all that sort of fun stuff. That's shop.smiteproleague.com. And once again, Inside Apparel Company bringing us all that sweet, sweet apparel action. Actually, I saw some Scarabs stuff on Twitter here today. The Scarabs got a pretty rabid fan base here behind them, Mifflin, hoping that we might get an upset against the Dragons.
They really, Zatman's going to have his fans follow him wherever he goes. And that's not to slight the rest of the team. Inbound's got a very successful stream. Veronica has some friends from the console days as well. These guys are a very well-supported squad, man. But the merch, I think, pretty sick. Maybe head over there and buy some right now if you're listening at home. Did I do that right?
We're double dipping on the. I think you did. Yeah, thumbs up. Thumbs up for me over here, Mifflin. Good job. You gotta get the 1-2 punch there. Look.
Oh yeah.
So we're going back kind of into some analysis here. I think between these two teams, the core, the 3v3, right? The rookies, as we've been not even referring. The rookies, just the title outside of Inbound here for the Solar Scarabs team between Layers, Boronic, and Inbound. That's gonna be the difficult matchup here, right? Looking at what you got to compete against over on the side of the Jade Dragons. You got Sanford Soccer. You got Hurrywind out of the mid lane, PBM. I mean, this 3v3 battle is going to be important in changing the tides of this game.
It will be. I mean, we've seen now that the Jade Dragons have finally bled just once within the league, that the way to beat them is early game pressure. That's the only thing that we've seen that can work, is to somehow snuff their aggression before the Jade Dragons are able to get their feet under them. It worked for the Bolts, and that's something that the Scarabs have been known to do in the past. This squad likes to play that early game phase, so if they are able to establish that lead and transition it into something in the mid game, that's one way for the Scarabs to get in. But that 3v3, as you already highlighted, going to have a very hard time playing up against Sanford Soccer, Hurrywind, and Polar Bear Mike. That is a Mount Rushmore of Smite right there.
It sure is. Look, PBM in the set against the Bolts had a great game 1, 0-0-10 on the Emoja, then 0-3 on Ardia, 1-5 on Cerberus. So a rare stumble from PBM in that set as well. I don't know how rapidly we can choose what camera we're looking at. I'm trying to figure out what Panda Cat is wearing on his head, if possible, to swap back to that at some point. It looked like maybe a minion hoodie of some sort. My man wears many hats, and I guess one of them is a minion outfit or something. But look, that's kind of the way he plays, right? He's got this cockiness. There it is. Can you confirm, Mift? Is that the idea? Do you think you can pull that over your head? I don't know if you can tell any better than I can what that is. Yeah, I sure can't either. It's Pix Advance for Game 1 kickoff, but that's kind of the way this team plays, right? They got, I don't know if you call it cockiness, I'll call it confidence, but it's kind of a jokey atmosphere that then they kind of batten down the hatches at game time, and they have these clear-cut game plans that have worked against all teams but one so far here this year. Picks and bans, though, for Game 1, starting off here, Jade Dragons against the Solar Scarabs. Athena we saw for Lasbra in our previous set, Mifflin, but it didn't look the best, but Athena still remains a top pick and returns back to the ban column.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, and the Solar Scarabs
No, not the on her.
Off on her. First, overall, that was going to be Panda Cat's main way in there to find that solo kill. Maybe Zatman dictating the bans a little bit off of that tweet, but for now, it is still largely remaining just meta-centric. That's interesting, though, Dave. Cirquette getting removed from the table. Is Lasbra in this game? I do not think so. That's a targeted ban over towards Layers on the side of Solar Scarabs. But with these targeted bans starting to roll their way through, there is still a lot of value value on the table. Tsukiyomi's still out there. All hunters except for Onher still out there. So Heimdall, Jingwei, been the kind of flavor of the month so far. Could see that selection come through here. King Arthur still available as well, and you better believe if it's going to be piloted by the young man Fine-OK, it's going to look incredibly good out of the solo.
Just know how devastated I am that the Onher gets banned away here. Here's the problem with this Mifflin is it makes sense, right? You have to ban it. PandaCat has looked so good on this pick. From strictly a wanting to win the game standpoint, I think you have to ban the Onher away. But Onher has been the root of like all of the 1v1s, most of the 1v1s that we've seen. So, you know, I'm sad from a Twitter standpoint, but makes sense from a Solar Scarabs trying to win standpoint. Yamoja makes her way through here, a classic Season 7 lane, as Heimdall and Yamoja will be paired together for the Solar Scarabs.
But this Yamoja pick is one that Inbound has struggled on in the past. We've had teams come up in interviews and say, yeah, we don't ban Yamoja against Inbound because generally it's not one of his favorite picks. So I'm surprised to see that they're willing to go towards it so early on in the draft. Even in the last set, we saw Yamoja go by the wayside more often than not. Scylla going to round out the draft for the Jade Dragons here in that first slot. Look, I need to see a lot from this Yamoja. I have not been impressed by his Yamoja in the past, but he has said on Twitter, on his stream, that he has been working on this god. So we'll see if the fruits of his efforts are here to be sown.
Well, that's just unfair. I mean, if PandaCat, it's like a little brother stepping away from his computer and the big brother stepping in and winning the game for him. That's what's happening here, right? The dog is clearly better at Smite than Fine-OK. And so that's a bit of, I don't know, there might be an asterisk. I don't know if we get a referee in here, see what's going on. Okay, so it's leaving the frame. It was just checking out, making sure picks and bans were going well. Kabam not needed because you've got Fine-OK's dog there, making sure everything is swift and looking good. To reroute ourselves in some seriousness here, Mifflin. Merlin locked in yet again. We're starting to see this pick a little bit more often. You think it makes sense here with what we see on the Jade Dragon side? Answer that with a Merlin over here for Baronic.
I think the Baronic just has Merlin in the God Pool. It's one of his comfort picks, and it can fit the style that the Scarabs are going for.
Okay,
it is early game aggression. The Scarabs do like going for those early objectives as well. Even in that last set, we saw them able to take it to the Titans, I believe. It was off a couple of Hail Mary early game objectives, utilizing that burst potential, or burn potential rather, that Merlin has. A 16-minute Fire Giant, an 11-minute Gold Fury from 3,000 gold down. That's the amount of burn afforded to you by this pick, so I do like it in the hands of the Scarabs here, but just looking at the drafts through and through, I gotta lean in favor of the Jade Dragons already, man. King Arthur, Scylla, and Ymir is such a hard core to argue against. You've already got a clean dive. You've already got some decent targets to lock down with the wall. Heimdall, if he ever uses the Bifrost, could have it on cooldown for upwards of a minute. It means that wall is always going to ring true. Even Yamoja can have a very hard time dealing with that. And then if you do somehow make it past the wall in these team fights, well, King Arthur is always going to be barreling down on you.
Yeah, he sure will. The solo lane matchup in this game is going to be fun to watch as well. Fine-OK up against Solo or Troll, one of the SPL veterans that the Solar Scarabs have been leaning on through some of their games so far this year. Couple jungle-centric bans for the Solar Scarabs, taking away the Fenrir as well as the Awilix, and then Thor and Robin both banned out. Robin makes some sense here because we've seen so much of that pick. I don't think it's lost yet so far here in the SPL. Thor, depending on the player, tends to look good. Yeah, if you want to grab yourself some of these sweet jerseys, shop.smiteproleague.com. That's Insight Apparel. He's providing those for us. Cullen locked in for SOT. It'll be Cullen up against King Arthur as well. And a Ho-Yi hover for PandaCat here and the Jade Dragons. It won't be the on-her duel, but Mifflin, there is some chance for some 1v1 fun if the Ho-Yi gets locked in.
It really could be. I thought it was going to be an Uul lock-in for PandaCat if he really was legitimately trying to play that aggressive style, but Ho-Yi fits that incredibly well himself. That AoE ultimate to dissuade anyone from rotating through, the stun as well, the knock-up to knock Heimdall out of the Bifrost. He has the 1v1 tools, but it's not necessarily an incredibly favored matchup. I might say 5-5 matchup inside the dual lane. Neither one of these guys
I love
can point
that.
at the god and say, hey, you won because you were carried by your pick. Instead, it's going to come down to play on field.
Oh, and that's what we've been hoping for here on the desk, at least going into this one between Zapman and PandaCat. Thanatos, the final lock-in here for the Jade Dragons. Mifflin got to be San for Soccer on this pick. We've seen it once. It's won once. Obviously has that execute potential, but stun potential maybe for some extra setup on the back end of that ultimate.
It can, and it's going to have decent targets inside of just anyone who falls into the execute threshold. You want to blow them up before Yamoja's able to resustain them. Thanatos, a great tool to deal with that as well. But I do not love Thanatos into this Erlang Shen matchup. If Solar Scarabs Layers is able to just follow Sanford Soccer around throughout the early game, make sure that when he lands, he's landing into a 9 turns Blessing or a knock-up from the turtle form, could really throw a wrench in the works for the Jade Dragons jungler. But that said, not very easy for Erlang Shen to keep up with the global ultimate. Or semi-global.
Myth, let's not mince words here. This is a favored game for the Jade Dragons. The underdogs going into this matchup are the Solar Scarabs. And the question in those matchups is always, has the underdog team at least given themselves a chance out of picks and bans? If you already lose the game in picks and bans against a favored team, it's tough, right? And so the question I pose to you is, have the Solar Scarabs given themselves a good chance here, at least headed out of picks and bans?
They've got good beads burning tools, they've got good objective burn, and they've got decent dive to get in towards these priority targets inside of Scylla and Ho Yi. But I am concerned with their ability to work past the actual dive of Jade Dragons. King Arthur and Ymir are going to be doing so much. Erlang Shen in the late game does have that burst of sustain, but is he going to be able to survive the burst of Scylla? You transform into a ferret to chase her down, sick him, crush, I'm a monster, you're dead, no matter what. It's going to be a tough one. The Solar Scarabs have a draft that can work, but I need to see them hit the ground running with it. I want to see them win out in the early, and that's easier said than done up against a Thanatos and a Ymir.
How much of that do you think relies then on Inbound's ability to make this Yamoja work better than we have seen in the past? It hasn't been horrible, but it hasn't been game-winning. How important is Inbound here in this game for the Solar Scarabs?
Very important. He is incredibly important. We already established how the 3v3 is going to affect this match, but Inbound in particular has a lot of weight to carry around this duo lane. When you lock in Heimdall Yamoja, you have to establish pressure. Yamoja, one of the best gods, at least establishing minion pressure, should be able to find it there, and then resustain and try and find the poke that way. Rotate out, has some decent targets for the ultimate. Thanatos has to use his own ultimate to escape Yamoja's. Even King Arthur gets locked in as well. We need to see a lot from Bobby.
Well, the Solar Scarabs have given themselves a chance. Jade Dragons trying to bounce back. Game 1 starts right now.
And Dolson, you and Miff hit on the key thing. The Dragons surely are the favorites. Can the Scarabs overwhelm that? It's Finch and Gore here with Doug providing the views as we move into this critical game number 1, where the Scarabs look to establish a momentum. Maybe while the Jade Dragons are still mortal. And Gore, I know the Dragons here are the favorites, but which of these drafts are you favoring, just kind of looking at them here at the beginning? You think maybe the aggression of this Thanatos and Ymir might overwhelm the Scarabs?
I think with the way the Dragons have been known to play in the past, this Thanatos Ymir sets the Scarabs up for a failure fast. But honestly, long term, I really like the Scarabs late game draft. I think Yamoja scales well. Obviously the Heimdall, I think the Merlin, the Kukulkan, and the Erlang all do really well in the late game. So if they can keep up with it, not fall too far behind, I won't be too surprised to see the Scarabs maybe give a little more of a fight than we're expecting. Even now, a little more poke on the Panda Cat than I was expecting. And that's actually perfect that it focuses it on the duo lane. First off, Zapman loves Heimdall. That shouldn't surprise anybody. I think it was one of the top picks for his team last year. It's probably going to continue to be, and so far has continued to be this year. But Inbound on Yamoja, last year there were several times where I would have told you this is a losing pick for them. In fact, several times it was a losing pick for them. They didn't have to ban it against Obey because he just couldn't play it. But he slowly got better at this pick, and I'm excited to see what it's going to be able to bring, because at the end of last year, we finally got to see what felt like a final unification between Inbound and Yamoja as a god. It just clicked all of a sudden. And I want to see if that's translated well into Season 8, and if it's going to be able to give some pressure to the duo lane as well as into this mid 3v3.
I think that you're right. The Death said it too. We've got to see how Inbound plays on this Yamoja in particular here. And they started off well, as you said. Got those beads out from Panda Cat. That's a pretty big way to start this game off. Maybe Layers can come over and capitalize. It's a tight window, though, and we don't see too many junglers come over here that aren't named Lasbra or Panda Tom. So maybe Panda Cat won't have that much to worry about. But going forward, that's something for him to think about. This Ho Yi, obviously with no CC immunity in the kit, gonna be very reliant on these beads up against the taunt and the control from this Yemoja. How Panda Cat navigates those murky waters gonna be another important factor here for the way this game goes. But so far in the early game, the Scarabs certainly hanging with them. I don't think it's such a big surprise. This team, while the record may not show it, certainly a strong and capable one with a ton of talent on it. It's only a matter of time, I think, before they really start to catch some of these teams by surprise and start snagging a few more wins. So I know you were saying that you expect this late game to look good for the Scarabs. What do you want their approach to look like in this early to mid as Inbound steps up and I believe steals away the purple buff, and he has escaped with that Riptide as well. Good play, but how do you want the Scarabs to go about, you know, maybe these next 10 minutes or so?
As weird as it sounds, I think maybe trying to avoid Sam, right? Like, just dodge out Thanatos. If Sam looks to be impactful, try to just stop that wherever you can, which can come in many forms, right? Maybe if you can kill him out, stun him off, force him to fall back. There's a lot of ways to deal with Thanatos, but the worst thing that could happen, I think, here is if Sam gets off to a good roll. And I'll be honest, it's kind of surprising whenever you see Thanatos go off to a slow start. It's not exactly what you tend to expect for him. That being said, I feel like Sam, especially as someone who played him a lot last year, is really adept at translating the curve. Like, Thanatos is known for his early game power spike and how just solid he is, levels 1 through, let's say, 7, 10, like in that area. But realistically, late game, it's just that he doesn't play the same way, right? He has 2 distinct play styles every game, and Sam plays that late game style incredibly well. He's much more better at setup, has really good silences, good execute, but sometimes you're not using it for the execute. You're using it as a stun for the setup for your team, and I think Sam does that really well. And so maybe the onus is less on stopping Sam and more on Layers to be able to get ahead of Sam. And this is a pick, if I remember correctly, we saw Layers on quite often last year and was really good for him on the Erlong Shin. So I would not be upset seeing him, especially now that that taunt is online, get a little aggressive, figure out where he wants to go. Baronic's damage is going to be okay at this point, but maybe not the exact follow-up you want. Maybe some pressure onto this duo lane where so far Inbound and Zap have been able to find a lot of control. Might be able to get a kill onto Panda, might be able to find a kill onto PBM, and that's another really good way to slow down the Dragons.
I think you bring up a good point, though. Baronic isn't the typical follow-up mage on this Merlin that you think of for Layers. We saw last year a big combo be the Erlong Shen Ra, because even just the pin into Snipe was so often guaranteed damage that if it didn't kill outright, would give the team piloting them pressure to maybe go look for objectives or an invade on the back of it. Baronic's damage, while it'll likely be really strong, we've seen Merlin in Venenu's hands, in a lot of players' hands, be really, really strong. It just comes out a little slower than some other damage might be. It's not that typical burst. So we'll see what the look is for Baronic as Mike steps up for an invade, but Layers is there and present. And I think that's more than enough to dissuade Mike away. But the purple's still standing, Mike's still hovering with Sam local, and that ultimate available. This could suddenly turn to a scary scenario for the Scarab. Sam rotates over. Mike has the purple in his sights. He puts up the wall. In comes the sight, but still Inbound healthy. And it's Layers' turn as Sam goes right up into the sky and knows that Inbound is in that execute threshold. He lands, but doesn't actually get the execute. Inbound must have healed beyond it. And now Sam in a miserable spot, so Herwin comes in for backup, and Sam still finds first blood. I'm a Monster does not connect. Heimdall rides the Bifrost, but a freeze is landed on Baronic, and Herwin will fall. Mike will fall, and Layers starts this game off with a double kill.
One, I don't want to take this away from him. Sam goes back in for the fight. Zap's going to get taken down here. I don't know how long Layers wants to hold on to this fight. And look, I don't want to strip anything away from the Scarabs. They play that really well in order to get those 2 kills. But they don't get those kills if the Dragons don't box themselves in there. I mean, you're between a tier 1 and a tier 2 tower 6 minutes in. Like, you deserve those kills because of what you were able to do. But they were also served you on a silver platter. So it comes with that silver lining. I think the Dragons kind of dictate there. And even when they lose, you know, a little, or Herwin, which I think is a big kill. PBM early on, maybe not as big as it will be in the later game, having a death on the Ymir. It's not really the end of the world for either team having that pressure come out, but it is very telling that the Scarabs were only able to win that fight in a scenario like that. Like, I need to see them in neutral territory where they don't have a distinct advantage like the map playing for them before I can start giving them credit for these kills. And the Dragons, on the other side, I mean, if you're going to get that aggressive, that kind of shows that you don't really care what the Scarabs are doing or what their draft says about them. In fact, they're running across a ward right now. It shows that they are willing to get aggressive. Solar Patrol, I don't even know if you're that safe under a Tier 1 tower with the way they've been playing. I mean, it will absolutely help you turn around a kill at this point in the game. But the Dragons are out for Bloodfinch. You don't go this deep unless you are absolutely ready to fight.
That's what it seems like, and they're here early for a blue buff invade as Herwin looks like pushed off his own red, maybe even solo invaded there by inbound. Not quite sure, but Herwin doesn't have the red, and that tells you quite a story on its own. Meanwhile, back at the buff invade that's still currently happening, really no contest there. Layers not able to make it over in time to help defend, so SOT, not the most damning thing in the world on a Cucullin losing out in the blue buff since he's working with that Rage instead, but certainly would like to have it over there since that mana can be converted for him. So not bad for the Dragons. Looks like lost out on red, but still do go get the blue as we now see Inbound and Moronic both with a red around their waist. That clears up any confusion that may have lingered. And kind of the way to evaluate it feels like the duo lane comes out a bit ahead with Inbound and Zapman both going down and Panda Cat staying alive and getting to farm. Meanwhile, Herwin goes down and maybe a bit of an opportunity for Moronic to find some additional farm.
Well, and the good news is kind of like what you say, right? Having specifically Panda Cat stay alive, you know he's going to be more or less on Solo Island here in a second once we see PBM kind of leave the lane for good and let, you know, Panda Cat jump off that cliff and see what he can do. Having him just slightly ahead at least alleviates the pressure from earlier this game where now it's PBM and Herwin who are knocking down an inbound. Not quite enough to get a kill, but I think this is a showcase of exactly what I wanted to say, which was if Boronic, he's a little bit ahead of Herwin, and like you had highlighted, that could be great, but what's it matter? It's Scylla.
Yeah, don't you think that if Herwin had red buff, that's a kill there since he's only off 30 damage? So just goes to show, Inbound and pulling off that invade saves his own life. Its freeze lands onto Layers. And this Amir pick, a little too strong right now for these teams to be so cavalier in letting it go. Boronic has to give up his beads in that engagement and becomes that much more vulnerable to even a Sikkim or a freeze or even just the slows coming from Sam. Boronic has to be real careful now for the next 130 seconds.
It was Jake and Inbound last year that really helped kind of bring that Ymir, not even to the forefront, but they looked better on it. Now it's Sam up in the air. I don't know that they fight this one. Yeah, Sam's already backing away. I think I agree with that, but that just goes to show how aggressive the Dragons want to be. The Scarabs rotate everybody over there just to protect a blue buff, honestly, maybe to protect Solar Patrol a little bit. But the ones dictating the pace of this game are the Dragons right now, and it's almost amassed them 1,000 gold lead throughout all of this. I mean, some neutral wins, not a lot of kills, but really just kind of some TKOs that are knocking the Scarabs back to base. Opens up mid camps for you, opens up Scorpions for you.
Mike tries to find the turnaround, freeze, goes into Shards of Ice, but the engage from Layers too good. And now Sam in danger of falling too as Layers wants yet another a double kill. And 4-0 start for the rookie coming out of the SCC and taking it to the Jade Dragons. Fine, okay, forced to run away with that ultimate, but in comes SOT with a root the team. Not following up anymore, but how about this? A hell of a start for Layers in the jungle.
Now I'll tell you my biggest concern, Finch. Layers is doing great, and this is honestly something we haven't gotten to see out of him really a lot so far this year. Can everybody else step up to it, right? Can they match what Layers is doing? So far, I think the setup, I actually have to give props to Inbound. That's a really, really well-placed ult to make sure that not only can Polar Bear Mike not get out of there, but Sam is stuck in the area. They're locked down in a way that really anybody other than Yamoja just won't quite be able to bring. So Inbound does a good job of setting them up. I feel like those two are going to be on fire, and they have to stay on fire for this team to keep this pace up. Fine OK is slowly but surely going to start rotating to these fights a little bit more often. Herwind only gets better with time, has gone for the Divine Ruin early on to help deal with some of the healing on the side of the Scarabs. And so I would argue, even with, 80 power off of Divine Ruin, that's not really where the big power spike has been. A lot of these guys have been going Charon's Coin. We used to be seeing Rada Tahuti a lot, but like Spirit Desolation, which might be, well, probably is the next pickup here for Herwind. it's going to be another big jump for him. All of that damage is going to come online. Then you factor in some of that damage from her passive. Should already have 1 tick of that as he's finished off his crush. So it's going to be kind of devastating as time goes on. I just need them to keep up this pace if you're the Scarabs, because the power curve is definitely going to start playing against you, at least in the mid lane.
So we saw Pandacat trade his ult for Zatman's ult and left. We got to see that Herwin has quite a bit of damage, and we're also seeing that Pyromancer is claimed by the Jade Dragons. The Scarabs weren't really in position to defend that with inbound over in left, having rotated on the back of trying to bully Herwin. Not just bullying Herwin, but it looks like successfully taken away yet another red buff. So that's why there's been a little bit of pressure over there in right for the Jade Dragons. Inbound's been spending time here in left and looking for these repeated buff invades.
And this is an interesting bot for Sam, of all people. Actually, I would argue worse for Layers. If he gets caught out there, Blink is ready for Sam. There's a world where he blinks immediately there, finds a good silence, freeze from PBM, and Layers is just gone. And honestly, that's a good way to start a fight if they can find and engage like that, especially a single pick. Getting Layers out of there makes it easier to engage on Baronic or SOT, even just to lock down inbound while he's rotating between lanes. But ultimately, they haven't been able to pull up. What was almost 1,000 gold is shifted down to about 100, right? The Dragons losing that fight, 2 more kills going on the Layers has definitely slowed down their pace. It's actually allowed the Scarabs to bring in some of the experience onto their side as well.
Yep.
And even just a little bit of a lead, specifically there in the jungle, it's just a little ahead. I actually think that's the more important level lead, as Layers has so far been a much more impactful jungler than we've gotten to see so far out of the Scarabs.
Well, Layers had an excellent start to this game. I'm right there with you. He's already got the Stone Cutting, Ninja Tabai, and Eye of the Jungle. That attack speed is going to be here in force once he finishes up this next item. Thinking likely a Ken size there for him to add on to how much damage he's doing off those basics. And that's going to make him a real problem for just about any one of the Jade Dragons to deal with until they're able to start getting these upgraded shells online. You already see it there for Pandacat. Looks like that's not going to be the call for Hurrywin, who just goes for the typical Aegis in this spot. But Pandacat knows he's going to need to be able to duel up against Layers as vision control on the Fury goes to the Dragons. I believe it was the Scarabs who dropped that Greater Scorpion on this side of the map. But maybe it'll end up being the Dragons who can capitalize on that as they rotate 2 members in. Sam and Mike both here. Layers, Baronic, and Inbound show up. Sam has his beads forced out by Inbound, so Mike engages with a freeze into a stun from Pandacat, who dashes away. So far, this fight trading pretty evenly on both sides, but Sam's beads being down, a big weakness for the Dragons.
And that's one of those rare moments. We've been talking about the Vines sometimes having an impact, but not really being the end-all, be-all. I think that Sam maybe gets to keep his beads if those Vines aren't up there. One more auto goes down, and he's either out of the stun or feels confident enough his ability to escape. And so just showcasing the little role they can have, at least in the Gold Fury pit. Kind of surprising, though, to see the Scarabs. Again, everybody kind of puts a lot of pressure over there, fighting over the Oracles, doesn't quite get any of the leads they want. And it hasn't led to much, and this is where I'm a little worried. The Scarabs have a pretty decent lead, not necessarily in terms of gold, but again, that experience department, and I want to see them try to capitalize on that a little more, be a little more proactive with being the call makers, because so far, even the losing fights have been started by the Dragons, and that's the thing that I think is always a telltale sign of bad news in the late game. If you aren't the ones who are able to say, let's go for this Gold Fury, let's grab this Fire Giant or Pyromancer, then you never really get to feel in charge. And we've had several teams, I mean, the Leviathans are a great example, where their counterpunch is way better sometimes than their engage. That might be the way the Scarabs are going to play this one, but I do want to see exactly like this, them making some shot calls.
The only person not going to be here for the Dragons is Mike. Inbound steps forward with that River's Rebuke, but he isn't execute threshold. Sam finds the kill, and the Gold Fury was leashed all the while, but the root lands Sam in trouble now, and Zatman able to make it 1-for-1 support for jungle, favoring the Scarabs so far as Herwin takes up to the sky with his ultimate, but SOT, who's made it here already, has a big impact cutting down Herwin, but Fine OK, not to be outdone, gets rid of Baronic, so mid support for mid jungle, still not bad for the Scarabs, but they get the beads out from SOT, and if they can lock him down, that's a huge kill, 2-man stun. stun from hi-rez, gets the beads out from Zapman. PandaCat finds a kill, and the Dragons able to get a nuts wall. Zapman's dead to rights for sure. 4 for 2 on the other side.
Look, I don't care. Like, Heroin, Sam, y'all gotta be okay with your deaths if PBM's gonna hit walls like that. Like, I don't care what's going on over there. Obviously, they'd love it. Heroin would like some more peel. Sam would like maybe just some more survivability overall. Of course, Layer's happy to be able to get out with his life, but if you're hitting walls like that, man, I don't care how else the rest of the fight goes. They could have lost all of that. That was beautiful from Mike. But it sets him up exactly the way you would want. A couple of kills, very strong ones at that, slowing down Sam and Hurry. I think very potent, well, gods and players in the late game for this team. But not only that, they clap back with 4, they clap back with a Gold Fury. I mean, it is exactly what you would want if you are a Dragons fan, if you're a Dragons player here, because it was the only way to really rectify that fight, especially losing some of your carries that early on. Yep, and the only person who gets out of there is Layers, so you don't even feel that bad about it. I mean, yeah, you'd love an extra kill on the Layers, but Zap, that level lead is virtually gone. Inbound's level lead is not as important anymore until about 17. If he ticks up before Mike, then he might be able to get that upgraded starter prior to him, but now both of them have their relics online. And that small lead that's in the jungle, I mean, at level 15, let's face it, Thanatos, his Scythe is going to be important, his ult's going to be important, and his Silence is going to be important. The setup I think that Sam is being able to bring is fine, and I don't think he cares too much if he's able to get rid of someone like Emoja or force Baronic to fall back or get some of the relics. Like, if he's able to control the flow that the Scarabs want that fight to go, then it's a win for his team, even if he ends up dying.
Whoa. Zapman ults there in response to Mike's presence. Maybe the right call with Heroin and PandaCat not too far away, but seems like maybe a bit of an overinvestment, but he didn't have beads or Aegis and wasn't willing to risk getting caught out there. So Zapman doing what it takes to stay alive. And stay alive he does. For the next half a minute, Zapman is a sitting duck without beads, Aegis, or results. Looks like as long as he's got the squad nearby, though, he won't be that wary. Maybe time for a bit of a build roundup here. Pestilence, Wind Demon. The big items just now finished for the Jade Dragons. Relic Dagger means that Mike can be pretty free with Horrific and Sunder if he sees a chance to pick off a target. Meanwhile, Zapman just got his Executioner finished. Wing Blade for Layer is going to be big to get away from these slows. Some key items score have just come in for these players, and they're going to start impacting how this game goes as we cross the 19-minute threshold.
You know, Relic Dagger, whenever you see that, the first thing you should look at is not only who has it, but what they have that's going to be assisted by. And so PBM, you know, Sunder, yeah, that's going to be nice. It's going to come up pretty often at that. The Horrific Emblem, as well as already upgraded, right? That's, I think, where the key comes through for him. It honestly kind of feels like you're seeing the full shift away from the shell. Like Mike's playing on the next patch without actually being on the next patch.
PandaCat leaps in, but gets cut inside the River's Rebuke, drops the ult and gets inbound quite low. Backup arrives, Layer's frozen, but gets the damage off anyway with the beads. And Blink up in the air, though, is Thanatos, and he's got an execute target thanks to I'm a Monster. PandaCat traded for Layers 1 for 1. Baronic taking too much damage from Sam in the back, forced to retreat. But I think Sam still sees ways to re-engage as Zapman gets aggressive, dashes into Mike, and finds a kill. Meanwhile, Sam did engage, but maybe a bit baited as Baronic and Inbound have the heals. Their life total up. And now it's SOT's turn to get involved. Gets the beads out from Sam. Looks like that heal didn't do much, but SOT closes the gap. Turns it into a 3-for-1, a huge fight for the Scarabs, but hi-rez here to try and even the tide.
Baronic Zap just low enough that they're not going to be able to continue any more of this bout. It feels like the Dragons, again, dictating where the fights are happening, even if they're not always going exactly the way they want. Big kill on the Layers. It's the first time he's died, so a big bounty that goes into their pockets. But the way they wrap around some of the teamwork right now from the Dragons feels a little more disjointed than what we're used to seeing. Like, a really good kind of dividing line created by the Scarabs to make sure the Dragons can't play together the way they want to. It's creating an interesting divide among them. Plus, some really good crit. If you're looking at something that's going to end up hurting PBM, right now, it's going to be the fact that, well, he's got a lot of health, not a lot to stop that health from going down quickly. The crits, the damage from a Merlin, the same thing from an Erlong, it's going to cause a lot of trouble. And the thing I was going to highlight a little bit earlier, Finch, was, you know, you get this horrific emblem and the upgrade, so you've got the slow, their attack speed goes down for 25% since it's upgraded, but additionally now, their damage is going to be reduced with this upgrade.
Yep.
The downside is, especially, and this is specifically because there's an Erlong on the other side, it does feel like they're going to be missing out on one extra upgraded shell that would really help control layers right now and maybe mold him a little bit into a less big threat that they're having to deal with. 5-1 and 2, still very prominent. Panda Cat goes down early in that fight as well. A couple of things I think that are going to shift up for the Dragons in the next couple of fights, but the Scarabs are doing a great job of staying alive in this game for admittedly what I thought was going to be an absolute beatdown. I did not think we were going to be sitting here at 22 minutes in with the Scarabs having much of a chance, but they're really able to clap back.
They have been able to, haven't they? Things have looked good from the Scarabs here so far, and I'm surprised by it. I'm alongside Jagor in how well they're hanging with the Dragons in this early game. So it looks like they're to the point where they can go toe-to-toe with one of the best that we have here in the SPL, and certainly not looked outclassed. As the Oni Fury is started up, the Jade Dragons have it down to half already, and the Scarabs really not in position for this one. This, a bit of a misplay from the Scarabs. When the game is this close, you gotta make sure you're in there to at least contest on that Oni Fury. Maybe Relic's down for Zapman had the Scarabs a bit gun-shy, but either way, a big win for the Dragons.
Now they've got ward control already, starting up a Pyromancer, and very similar to what you had just said and what you just saw, they're not going to be around for the Pyromancer. What was about, 2,000 gold now is going to jump up to 4,000, close to 5,000. Panda Cat gets a solo. First off, you promised us one on Twitter, man. So, you know,
That's right.
Bear that in mind. We got to get back over here, and you've got to get at least one kill, or you got to get soloed. One of the two. I don't really care which one happens. We just need some action in the one-on-one scenarios there. The team for the Scarabs also just have to be active literally anywhere on the map. It looks like they're going to be able to knock down a tier 1 here. It's going to even up the tower line. But ultimately, I think they just need to be more proactive in terms of these neutral objectives. They don't really have a lot of prowess in starting a Fire Giant. They do have a lot of burn, though. That's something Boronic is going to be able to bring to the table with Yamoja, Rivers, or Buke. Inbound can throw that up to block off the Dragons. And there's chances of potentially even sneaking it away from underneath the Dragon's eyes, but you have to look away or look around at the ward coverage. A lot of deep wards coming out from the Dragons. A lot of sentry wards that are on the map as well to kind of keep control of the Scarab's vision. And they go back, they pick up a ton of those in their inventory. So I expect to see this right side of the map about to just light up for both teams.
It should. They'll have that ward advantage for a little while longer as the Dragons can't hope to match everything that the Scarabs just bought, and they are in position, as you said, have plenty of burn to put on it, not just Baronic's damage that he can get out of this Merlin, but Layers is sustained damage as well with this attack speed build alongside Zapman. So inbound starts the fight off with Rivers Rebuke. In comes SOT to follow up, as FineOK has got an inbound quite low, but Sam, left alone, can't make it to the sky in time, and Layers finds the very first kill of this engagement. Crush fade away, not quite enough damage to take care of inbound yet. Who has the Macai's Cloak, really no dedicated magical defense, but shrugs it off all the shame. Shell, able to give him some extra life there. And the Dragons still want to come in and fight, even though they're down a member. Gore, great work by the Scarabs to find a collapse there onto Sam.
Yeah, and honestly, brilliant by them, and lucky for them that execute's not able to go off. I mean, if he does get up into the air, that execute is so crucial in finding at least a kill, but at this point in the game, again, I kind of highlighted it, 25 minutes in, yeah, your execute's nice. The stun is really, really helpful. You've got to really secure one coming down from PBM on a much lower cooldown, but I think it's going to be a lot of setup, and you've got to be careful trying to jump into an FG here in a 4v5.
Fire Giant still leashed. FineOK makes his way behind inbound towards Layers. Crush connects and Layers low. FG now dropped and SOT has dived. Irwin up inside the I'm a Monster, forced to retreat with Sikkim, but Zapman closes the gap as inbound goes down, and Zapman takes care of Hurrywin. So still the fight favoring the Scarabs, but now Sam for Soccer has respawned, but Mike has fallen to Boronic as Zapman retreats hastily. Makes his way out of there. Fire Giant still doesn't go down. Scarab still behind as Sam blinks in, catches up to Boronic, and deletes him instantly. FineOK gets the stun, and SOT the new target as the Dragons continue their onslaught and likely should be able to get Zapman.
One more cooldown for Sam. Yeah, should be a kill onto one of these two. They're both pretty squishy. Also, that should not be a big kill. There's the Bifrost! just-in-time zap. Look, that scythe went right, frame perfect after Zap starts to transport. That is maybe a little bit of luck, maybe a little bit of calculation there from Zap, knowing exactly how far away he was going to be. But I'm a little worried. I mean, Finch, I'm going to say this just outright. If this was any other team than the Scarabs right now, I think it'd be the Dragons at a deficit. They still technically have a 3,000 gold lead, which is impressive from them, but with the way they're playing, very disjointed, a lot of solo picks that are coming through, it feels a lot sloppier than what we're used to seeing out of them over the last 3 weeks. And so this week, maybe the bolts are in their head. Maybe that's where a lot of their preparation were. Right? I don't know if I want to give it, there's a little bit of credit here to the Scarabs for causing them to be as disjointed in these team fights as they are, but I think a lot of credit should go that if the Dragons were playing this as clean as we're used to seeing, that 3,000 gold lead should theoretically matter a lot more.
And maybe in their heads a bit, the Dragons that is, that the Bolts, a team they were supposed to beat on paper, were able to find 2 convincing wins in a row. I wonder if there's any apprehension that another set like that might be in the works, because the Scarabs have looked impressive. And Gore, you mentioned that 3K gold lead spread out amongst the team, but that is not by any means backbreaking. The Scarabs certainly in this, and going to add more when they take this Primal Fury. Might gets there, but too late. Is able to retreat, and yet a little bit more that catches the Scarabs up. It's going to make their Fire Giant dance that much better. As Fine-OK catches out Baronic, who has no relics. Can't quite get all the way to him, but at least pushes him out. Whatever the Dragons are going to do, they got to find a way to do it soon, or else this late game Umoja, this full build Erlang Shen, this Heimdall, and all this damage from the Merlin might just start to catch up to him.
Feels like controlling layers is going to be the key to this game. When they got a lot of those early leads, or massive leads, I should say, swings, it was when they killed layers off over there near the duo lane. Right now, that hasn't been happening consistently enough. SOT's been able to get into the backline as well a lot, to cause a lot of pressure on Herwin.
I'm a Monster comes through, but I don't think it gets the reset. Panda Cat gets the kill on SOT as Layers now low 2. It's the Scarab suddenly with a disjointed engagement. It's Fine-OK finds a 3-man stun. Sam for Sucker gets a double, as does Panda Cat. They split up the kills. Layers gets the back off in time, but Gore, as if by clockwork, as if they spoke it into existence right when we said they have to make a play, of course the Jade Dragons get it done.
And exactly the kind of play they needed to, right? Like, after all of these fights where things have just not looked clean from them, it felt all over the place. They're not even worried about it. They've got 30 seconds, Finch, without anybody on the Scarabs other than Layers to defend. They're at least going to go for a Phoenix. It might take them a little while. I don't know if, with an end, I think Inbound should be able to respond. SOT should, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to slow them down and stop them.
12 seconds for Inbound's back. Fine-OK already in. The Titan is the call. Layers has got to do work and buy time for his teammates to get in, but Panda Cat completes the deicide. 2 seconds away from SOT. 3 from Inbound, but they will not come to pass. The Jade Dragons in the game in an instant.
Like, that's only game 1. I can hear a post-game interview right now where you ask the Dragons, man, what was going wrong? Why was it so close? You were only up 3,000 gold, you were losing fights, and they go, we kind of trolled for 26 minutes and then decided, you know what, maybe we should end this one. Like, it does feel like that last fight was the personification of what I expect from the Dragons, right? It's just clean. They know the targets they want to deal with. They were ready for the rotation from Layers before Layers even knew he was going to make it, and that really stopped what the Scarabs were trying to do, and again, kind of drove the spike between them, separated the fight so well that it really caused a divide in the Scarabs, made it easy to pick up whatever was left, all the scraps, and then just run it down right, I guess.
Yeah, gotta be frustrating for Layers. That's the first fight I don't think he was in. And it's the first fight they lose that handily. If you want to celebrate the game Layers had, maybe check out Inside Apparel. Go to shop.smiteproleague.com and pick up a jersey to represent your boy. And if you want to celebrate the Dragons, who never seem to be out of it, maybe grab some of their gear too. Lots of cool stuff for you to pick up and represent the squad. We're going to take a quick break, though, then be right back to break down Game 1.
Was it Ramsey or Max from How a Grinch Stole Christmas? I'm not sure. But all I know is all I want for Christmas is an Alienware R10 edition PC that all of our pros are playing on. Thanks to Alienware for sponsoring us here in Season 8 of the SPL. If you want to pick up some sweet Alienware gear, here, she doesn't like this, so I'll end the bit early. But if you want to pick up some sweet Alienware gear, go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW and grab yourself some awesome gear for yourself. So thanks to Alienware for being our title sponsors here in the SPL. You're tired, so I'm going to turn around and let you go sit on the bed and hopefully let us get through this picks and bans and death segment with clear mind. Mifflin's with me to round out game number 1. And Mifflin, the Scarabs look great here in game 1. They don't win, but they take it to the Jade Dragons a little bit throughout this one.
Jade Dragon's not looking nearly as untouchable as I thought at the beginning of this week, man. The Scarabs play out of their actual minds in this one. We gotta talk about layers, all right? We gotta talk about layers for just a second, man. This guy is performing greatly. I know it's Jade Dragons. They won. All right, I know we're going to watch their clips, but I'm going to talk about the Scarabs for a second because they look so phenomenal. Even in the early game, it was aggression rooted from them. They're constantly looking to make proactive plays, and they utilize their lead incredibly well. All right, now we can talk about the winners. Jade Dragons, I think the narrative really has to be they aren't looking as good as we would have expected from them. This is a set where they are heavily favored. They truly are, and it wasn't as easy as I think some Jade Dragons fans would have expected, and I think it's due in large part to a shaked mental. It feels like to me just a little bit that the bolts got in their head, doesn't it? It's a little bit of lack of confidence, I'd say, in their play style. Maybe Hurry when playing a little bit further back than he was earlier on in the week. Maybe it's a couple of times where PBM isn't feeling nearly as confident to keep moving forward. But at the end of the day, they still are able to find a win, and it still looks convincing. PandaCat doesn't get his solo kill, but still goes 5-1.
Looks good, 5-1-9 for PandaCat. Seems like a battle of the jungles here. Sanford Soccer had a great KDA alongside Layers as well. Layers not the most damage. Baronic and Zapman providing that, but Layers able to confirm and set up a good few of the kills here. Jade Dragons, it was a slower start to this game, but they're able to kind of re-knit themselves together in a way that we know that this team can. But this does make for a somewhat interesting set here, Mifflin, where we now see a Solar Scarabs team that has the ability to make plays in the early game, that can get some kills on the board, that can hang in these games. Now it's doing it on a consistent basis. Remember, Baronic in the pregame interview said, look, we haven't seen the full potential of this team through an entire setup to this point. They have won a set, but they're saying as the weeks and the months go on, what you see here in game 1 is just going to be how it is, right? And they'll convert those to wins more often. So now it's about seeing that in game 2, turning that into a bit of a win. I think Ramsey has a Scarab. Yeah, she has my Khepri plushie from Worlds, and she's getting at the stuffing. So maybe
that's
some imagery if it is. Hey, no, maybe if the Jade Dragons lock in Fenrir here in game 2. It's a little bit of imagery depending on how this one goes. But let's focus on those picks and bans a little bit here, Mifflin, because what we've established here, Zone, was a close game, bit of a fumble there towards the end by the Solar Scarabs. With that being said, do you stick with some of the same strategy that you brought to the table there in game 1 if you're the Scarabs, or do you swap it up?
I think the Scarabs can essentially run back the same draft. I would prefer to see Bobby on something he's a little bit more comfortable on. I think that would have given them the edge to transfer that early game lead a little bit more so into the mid game. But outside of that, strategy, picks, all look incredibly good here. Baronic said in the interview, we haven't shown our full potential, and that still might be true, but we got to get a pretty good glimpse of it in that game, man. If they're able to bring that same level of energy into game 2, the Jade Dragons, they're going to have as hard a game as in game 2, seems like.
Yep, let's check that energy for game 2 in the picks and bans. Let's see where that starts to change. Ramsey, we got a sidecar, backseat. She's not really a backseat driver. I guess she is. She's a backseat viewer or something. I know. Isn't it wild? It's actually kind of freaky. Every time she pops up on my camera, she's just like behind me glaring. It's better, the viewers who watched last year when I first had her and she was like 2, 3, 4 months old on camera. It was incessant barking and biting. You could see me flinching while on camera because she'd be like gnawing on my ankles. So staring, I think, is at least a slightly better habit for Ramsey to have developed here. Jade Dragons, they're going to stick with the Sobek ban here in game number 2. The Giannis taken away from Hurrywin, but that also means taken away from Baronic. What do you think about what you saw from the Emoja there in game number 1? Is that now maybe still in the wheelhouse of inbound moving forward for this team?
I think that his Umoja is certainly improved. It looks a lot better this week than last time we had seen it. But I think that he certainly still has picks that he is more comfortable on. That's not to say that he didn't have a good performance, but I think that he can have a great performance on something like the Amir that we saw back in Season 7, where he was playing that week in, week out. One of the first guys to do it, and he looked incredibly strong on it. I think it's those run-it-down, aggressive style supports that really do synergize well with what Inbound wants to do, and I want to see him play more of that.
King Arthur for Final K, something that many opponents don't want to see him play more of. It's such a strong pick for Fino there out of the solo lane. It really embodies his playstyle, doesn't it? Where you can be tanky, but you can kind of run down, command the front line, often the back line too, depending on the targets that you find. So it's a great first pick here for the Jade Dragons. No surprise that they end up going back to it. Tiamat off the board on her as well to round out the Solar Scarabs bans. Athena and Serket both still taken away. Could be a run back here, Mifflin. What do we think about what we saw on Zapman's Heimdall there in Game 1? You surprised at all that we go back to it here for Game 2?
No, this is one of Zap's favorite picks, man. He loves the god of the Bifrost. He utilizes the portal incredibly well. We saw a couple of great chase down kills with the ultimate. He knows it's the Zapman passive. He's been so conditioned from all the streaming that he's done that there's going to be a lot of ganks in his lane. So that additional vision afforded to him by the first ability going to find a decent amount of value in this one as well. Surprised to see that they don't elect to the Solar Scarabs, that is, go towards that Ymir pick in the first 2 slots. Normally Ymir gets banned out in these sets, but now it is going to be a Scylla lock-in, trying to take another peek at what Hurrywin likes to do on the other side. I think Hurrywin's god pool is Giannis number 1, Scylla number 2, and then he's still incredibly strong, but those are solidly his top 2. So I like this pickup from the Scarabs, just to target out a little bit what the Jade Dragons are looking for.
Agreed. I think it's a good multifaceted pick here for the Solar Scarabs. Though another multifaceted pick that we're starting to see more of is this Raijin. And I think that's a bit of an overused phrase now for this pick. 15 games played. It's not that we're starting to see more of it, it's we're continuing to see it by the end of it. I don't know what's going on with the chair there in the back of Panda Cat's room, but looked as lopsided as some of your paintings did back in your old place there, Mifflin. Look, everything looks so nice and clean for you here nowadays. I gotta be able to rib your old place just a little bit. But the Emoja locked in here for the Jade Dragons, terrifying in the hands of PBM. And that means in all likelihood, the Xing Chen will be going over to inbound.
That Jing Chen likely a pickup in response to this Yamoja. I think had it not been a Yamoja lock-in, it likely would have been the Ymir, but wants to be able to avoid the ultimate, does not want to be able to get locked in, so that jump going to come in handy. It's also decent CC setup tools. I mean, Skyhook going to be so great at locking in someone for I'm a Monster. The ultimate's going to be a great beads burner so that Heimdall can find value off his own ultimate. The Jing Chen pick as well fits that more aggressive style that I associate with inbound. I like this adaptation. Solar Scarabs is a pretty strong draft in the top 3, but hard to argue against Jade Dragons locking in a King Arthur and a Yamoja, isn't it?
That's right. They've got plenty of pressure and control there on the front line through their first 3 picks. Raijin back to supplement some of that damage, a little bit of control there as well. No Fenrir, no Ramsey eating a Scarab imagery here for Game 2, because the Jade Dragons are going to take that one off of the table as well as the Hercules in the second wave of bans here. That leaves open the tier here, Mifflin. So if you want to give SOT something to control that front line with, the King Arthur versus tier matchup should be some fun, but I don't think that's really at all worth focusing on here at this point, because the Artemis being hovered by the Jade Dragons and Panda Cat. You don't think?
No way Panda Cat does it. If he does do this, it is directly disrespectful to Zapman, the only other guy on the planet, I think, who's ever locked in Artemis in the Pro League in the last couple of years. If Panda Cat does this, it's almost as if he's saying, hey, you know that thing that you have to yourself? Yeah, I'm going to do it better, is the call-out. I'm thinking, no way he locks it in. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it even a little bit. He's just trying to shake him. There's no way. It doesn't even... I don't even think it fits the draft incredibly well. It's going to struggle, yeah.
No.
It's going to struggle up against this tier. It's going to have a hard time against, sure, you got the CC immunity for the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, but you do not want to be this immobile against the Jing Shen, who's going to be able to walk you down and just find the route consistently. No way he does it. The fact that he's hovering it this long tells me there's no... Alright, he did it. He did it. Alright, this is a call-out. Naja locked in with it.
You don't like it?
Well, now it fits into the draft a little bit better with this Naja lock-in, Dave. Windfire Wheels land into a trap. You don't have to commit any other ultimate. Should be able to find the kill on the tail end, but it is going to struggle against this dive, especially with a Tsukiyomi locked in. Piercing Moonlight, run him down. It's so easy to close gap, and Artemis really only has the additional movement speed from the Vengeful Assault to keep herself into safety. This is going to be a tough one for Panda Cat if he has the ire of the Solar Scarabs on his side.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, you talk about staring over my shoulder. That literally came out of nowhere.
That's
talk to me a little bit about the look. Here's my knowledge with Tusky, is me and my average MMR teammates stand in a giant circle while Tusky stuns all of us, and then we just lose the team fight. There's got to be a little bit more coordination, you imagine, at the SPL level. How effective is that ultimate up against what is now proving to be a very formidable squad in the Solar Scarabs?
Well, in the 1v1, Heimdall can just use his own ultimate to CC immune Artemis while running away, so it's going to be pretty hard there. But inside the team fight, if you're using it as a defensive tool, you're always guaranteed to stun at least one person. If you're using it offensively, but barring a misplay, you're still going to stun at least one person. With changes that we saw to Ardos' ult in Season 7, it's now a lot easier to target whoever you want. But that said, there are good tools on the side of the Solar Scarabs to deal with Tusky quickly. After the first target is hit, it exposes the board to dying. Scylla can drop a crush. Well, Tusky's gone all of a sudden. Come late game, I think it's more so just a safety tool. I treat Artemis' ultimate as a tertiary relic, if you would. Just a little bit of CC immunity and a stun around you.
Right, stun the guy who's in front of me, trying to chase me down, and maybe I'll get some more uptime in this fight. Look, we haven't seen Artemis at all to really understand the build. Do you imagine the build path is pretty similar to what we've seen from Hunters here as of late? You go Devos, Xe, crit, call it a day?
Cannot argue against that build right now, man. Crit is just such a great option. But Artemis used to be, a little bit of Smite trivia here, little shades of waiting room, used to have crit inside the passive, so she used to be the premier crit auto-attack hunter. Now that's Jing Wei. Now the passive being that if they're CC'd, they take a little bit of additional damage. So it still could work out with Deathbringer. You're dealing additional crit damage, and you're already doing more damage off CC. Could have some of the higher DPS amongst hunters within the game right now. But that's theory crafting, and that's numbers. That's not for me. We'll leave that one up to Flare Boot.
Well, look, if you haven't gotten enough evidence, it's time for me to feed Ramsey, and it's also time for Jade Dragons and Solar Scarabs, game number 2.
And with some interesting picks, what has been called the Zardomus before, because of how often it's in Zapman's hands, is now for Panda Cat. The Artemis there, Mike on Yamoja, already a pretty good sign. Sam on Naja, they've got CC at their disposal. But the draft for the Scarabs is quite strong as well. Gore, how does this Scarab squad deal with this artist? We haven't seen a whole lot of it.
I mean, they don't have to work very hard, man. Like, admittedly, you have to get past PBM and fine, okay, that's going to be a little bit of work. But, look, you've got, objectively, like, the Scarabs just have a better lineup all around. Tier, Tsukiyomi, you've got Scylla. The damage is going to be easy to lock down because Artemis doesn't have a dash. Inbound should be able to chase her down pretty easily. Zapman in a 1v1, theoretically, should have the advantage, just plays a little bit better. That stem might come into the equation. And, Finch, I'm going to hit you with this one. So Artemis played 4 times last year, right? She only had a 25% win rate. Only won 1 of those 4 games. Zapman went 1-1 with her. Radiance had played her, as well as the Renegades. Never once did we see Panda Cat, of all people, playing that Artemis.
Wow.
You know, of course, you got to watch these streams. Like, if you're watching Zap, you're watching Panda Cat. They're going to play them regardless. Sometimes, right? Not all the time, but you're going to end up seeing an Artemis game once every now and then. But that doesn't give me a lot of hope for the duo lane over here. I think a lot of the pressure's on Mike to try and make the Jade Dragons look good. Whereas inbound, I mean, this is going to be a solid pick for him. We saw this Xing Shin throughout all of last year. It feels more aggressive for him as well. Much better than his Yamoja. I think he's going to be able to get super aggressive, create a lot of opportunity for Zap. When it comes to 3v3, Baronic has a lot more follow-up. Layers has a lot more deep dive. the Scarabs have a much better early game, and I think late game this time around than the Dragons do.
Yeah, they've got some options. I think it's going to rely a lot on what Inbound and SOT are able to do in this game. Inbound did look pretty good on that Yamoja in Game 1, was setting up. Honestly, the Scarabs looked good. It was literally one fight they lost, and the game ended as Sam gets aggressive, crush used, and Sam's beads expended. The entirety of Jade Dragons have beads, for what that's worth, by the way, and does start to back off. So can't find more aggression, but the Scarabs looked good. It was just one fight, and for what it's worth, I think the only fight Layers wasn't in that they end up losing so handily that the game ends. So they just got to avoid that same result here, and they've got a good shot, I think, to take care of the Dragons if they can keep things going the same way they did in Game 1.
And I think neutral objective burn was really strong for the Scarabs last game, but it just didn't get to come to fruition, right? We didn't get to see it that often.
There
Gold Fury, yeah. Pyromancer. There was never really a chance for the FG that went their way.
PandaCat low over here in left, but does evade trouble. You better not step up because Layers is showing up, but so is Sam for soccer, and Layers the one already on purple. That sash off the mark, but Sam does secure the blue buff for his team. All the while, Zapman ends up poked out, so Inbound Kit's aggressive. Knock up onto PandaCat, and Layers will take the opportunity to throw out some poke. But in the end, purple buff secured. Looks like the farm probably doesn't go to the dual lane the way it's meant to, but at least they got it as Herwind just rotates in, find Layers. Yeah, Sam can't find the sash again, so Herwind forced to Thunder Crash away. That could have been a kill if that sash had landed, and now Herwind in trouble.
Herwind definitely seems to be in a weird spot there. I don't know what pathing he was taking to get over here, but a good spot from Layers to make sure that he gets him down. Unfortunately, wasn't able to locate that kill, but I think Layers makes the smart call, right? You don't want to fight
he's still red
when Sam's all the way around there, and they're able to continue getting aggressive. This is good, I think, overall from them. Inbound being able to pick up that. And again, on something like Xing Qin, he can get super aggressive on this pick as well. I'm actually really excited to see what they can do here in the next few minutes. They've been driving the pace really well. We're about to see those Scorpions come up, so I think that that's going to be a place where the Scarabs are going to be able to find control. And that leads me to my last point. Last game, we didn't get to see that a lot from the Scarabs. I think they got Gorp over there on the left side, and that was about it. Maybe they picked up a couple of the Scorpions on right, but they didn't really get those neutral protections. Baronic, even though he had better burn last time around, has much better secure this time. I expect the Scylla to be big.
There's the sash, but no follow-up and no need. Sam gets those beads out from Baronic just by landing the sash, and he that much more vulnerable the next time Sam comes his way. Speaking of Sam, he used beads early on in the game to get aggressive onto Baronic, and those are just now about to return to him. 10 more seconds, and he'll have that added safety feature. We still haven't quite yet gotten to see what PandaCat can do on this Artemis. She can be a bit slow to get off the ground, but if she can find a combo with her trap on the back of some CC from her lane partner, that she can get dangerous in a hurry. So excited to see what PandaCat might be able to pull off in this game on an unorthodox ADC pick. No one really playing Artemis right now.
SOT, we're actually in a little bit of trouble here. I'm not too worried for a tier, though. Yeah, exactly, for that reason. He's also going to have a lot of sustain over here. Final K and SOT were the big playmakers, I think. Like, Layers had a huge impact in every fight, but once that solo lane rotation started to come through, SOT was doing a great job chasing people down, and let's face it, this game, he's got some pretty easy targets. Herwind might be difficult, but PandaCat is going nowhere in the event that tier gets back there. So I think SOT has a pretty big idea of who he needs to try and lock down and who he's going to be isolating throughout this game.
Sam goes to the sash. That's his third one this game off the mark, but it might not matter. Windfire Wheels misses too, and SOT survives. Sam looking a little rusty on the Najah here at the start of this game, Core, and that's resulted in yet another dropped kill. I think we could argue that kill onto, I don't remember who he had isolated in the left side jungle, but that should have been the kill, and now drops the one here onto tier 2. That could have potentially been picked up.
Yeah, Scarabs put their juke shoes on in game number 2. I mean, they're ready for it. They're absolutely making Sam, like, almost feel foolish at this point. I mean, that's been a couple of kills that maybe should have gone the way of the Dragons, and now it's Herwind who's in trouble.
Inbound gets aggressive. Thunder Crash back over the wall, gets him out, but Mike still left to the Scarabs. and they are ready to collect. Riptide allows him to move, piercing Moonlight used as well, and nowhere for Mike to go as Baronic low. Solar Troll takes care of her when Baronic does end up falling to Sam to at least give one kill the way of the Dragons. But what a way for the Scarabs to start here in Game 2, taking care of Herwin and Mike in one fell swoop.
Dictating the pace of the game feels great for the Scarabs. Mid, admittedly, you don't want Baronic to fall there, but you trade for mid and support, and Baronic already has a little bit of a lead. You're not really crying over that one either. Zapman's been able to work up a lead. This is a really good mid game from him, Vince. 500 gold lead as well. I mean, it's not a lot to build off of, but that's in 6 minutes, right? Just wait until suddenly these Scorpions start going down. The grouping right now inbound, I think, is being a lot more proactive. It's given us a lot more opportunity to see the Scarabs' strengths.
Keeping their momentum from Game 1 here in Game 2 as Sam wants these vines down for an escape route. Doesn't have beads, nor does Mike after that skirmish on that right side jungle near those back harpies. Fine OK and SOT embroiled in yet another battle in solo, but Fine OK retreating. Fine OK goes tank boots, SOT goes power boots, and I think that makes sense. You want that power for all that healing you're doing. He's able to sustain that way and doesn't need the tank boots to be as effectively tanky. So not a bad route over there. I need Sam to be a little bit more consistent on this Najjar. At the very least, the Scarabs got to slow down a bit so he can line up those shots because it hasn't quite been there to start this game.
Yeah, not a lot from the Najjar. Again, this is something we've seen from the Kings a lot more recently. Twig has been playing it to the point where it was one of the first bans that the Bolts used against it last set. And so it's not surprising to see some of the other junglers pick it up. It's a really good setup. Maybe not exactly the carry potential. I think Najjar has it, just not to the same extent as... I mean, just look at the opposition. Tsukuyomi has. I mean, Tsukuyomi has been the real playmaker game changer. If Layers has half the game that Layers had last time around, the Tsukuyomi is going to pop off like it's nothing, man. So I'm really excited to see what that's going to be able to do. And both are playing to their power curve. A little bit of a level deficit here for Layers, but I don't think that's going to matter too much. Again, it's the ult, the groupings, and the team fights where he's really going to be able to kind of showcase that strength. So even though Sam has been farming maybe better, I don't know if that's even the right term, Layers has just been looking for more blood and finding it. I think it's going to end up paying off for them in the late game for the Scarabs here, as Tsukuyomi's just strong.
Good rotation. Inbound interrupts the Thunder Crash, but Herwind escapes all the same. The target I think the Scarabs would really like to lock down is this Artemis for Panda Cat, but they just can't get over there just yet. So difficult to make those dual lane rotations for a jungler without feeling guaranteed that you're getting a kill. There's so much farm on the right side they'd rather be with. So let's take a look at some of these builds as Mike and inbound skirmish in the jungle. Brawlers, Beat Stick, Breastplate Finish, Divine Ruin. Some key items coming in. Meanwhile, Sam going to start off with a Transcendent, so he's got that stacking and ready to go as well. Eventually, that's going to be a big power spike for him.
Yeah.
And you're going to be really feeling like if your Layers, Baronic, are inbound, where's all this damage coming from? Well, my man invested early and has a lot of power coming in the back pocket.
He needs to hit some sashes before that can come through, but, you know, I expect it, right? As time goes a little later, Sam will get there. He'll get there. It's just going to take a little while. I'm really watching this duo lane, though. I mean, Zap has already kind of been controlling things inbound. Again, a little bit behind in farm, but he's had a much bigger impact than what we've gotten to see out of Mike so far this game, so it doesn't really matter. But Artemis is the one that I'm just kind of perplexed by, and I don't know that it's going to fare well. If inbound drops an ult here, it's either going to burn the beads or find a kill, thanks to Zapman's damage behind him. Just playing it really well here for the Scarabs. I think this is a lane that they just have a distinct advantage in, and I like that they're using it.
As they should. Panda Cat might be getting his impact more in these late game team fights. He'll be full build, and that attack speed stim will be really strong. His ultimate can sometimes get a bit lost in the shuffle with so much going on, and then suddenly you're stunned. You're like, what's happening? It's Tusky who snuck his way to you. But in this early to mid, I think you're just going to be better off having Heimdall with all that extra power in the kit. The ultimate that could put someone on ice for a little while as well, and the squad can group up around them. Just good tools at his advantage. Plus he has the Bifrost, and Artemis just has a really slow movement speed that she gets. So, big advantage, I think, to this Heimdall.
Yeah, and again, like we said it last game, I think they said it in Picks and Pans, has to be reiterated, which is just the fact that this is one of Zapman's best gods. I think just inherently he plays it a ton, and he plays it well at that. So I think it's going to be something that's going to hit pretty hard as the game goes on. Already finished up those Devos, and now with that Scorpion, again, an enhanced purple buff, like, this is one, I think on Heimdall, might be one of the best buffs. It's a great, like, enhanced purple is maybe one of my favorite enhancements outside of, like, blue buff, just because of the cooldown, but the attack speed that purple gives you, and I'm sure you can appreciate this as a hunter player. When you're playing Heimdall, you love that, man. Bigger axes, a lot faster, it's going to feel better. And again, it kind of creates a deficit here. Panda Cat's going to have trouble overcoming.
And Hurrywin buried Baronic, and inbound catch him out in the jungle. Hurry drops the beads in a losing effort as he is sent to the afterlife. What a play from the Scarabs there in the mid to catch them out. Now a purple buff invade on the back. They go right from the kill to an invade. I wonder if they want to come to this Fury. They're the ones who spawned it by grabbing the Scorpion, and while they were on it, the Dragons rotated over and got Pyromancer in trade for a Scorpion. Not a bad trade for the Dragons, but right now the Scarabs might only be 1,000, but that 1,000 is theirs, and they're in the lead up against the Dragons. Just got to find a way to keep that from plateauing, as FineOK gets his back interrupted by SOT, who dives this Tier 1. SOT's had great presence over here in this solo side. Looks like he is on the hunt for more farm to strip away from this jungle as well. And a camp just about to spawn, but as are Sam and Hurrywind, they'll show up just in time to deter SOT from sticking around any longer.
And, you know, I've been highlighting a lot of the tier versus Artemis because, like, let's face it, late game, that I think is going to be the easiest and freest potential kill for SOT to find. But Hurwin doesn't have a lot to stop it either. Like, he has to catch the Fearless out with his Sash prior, but not a lot of survivability without having to use your ults, and that always feels bad in my eyes as a Naja to just escape. It's so difficult to make that decision. Although, granted, walking out with your life is usually a little better than dying, so I won't be surprised if we maybe see that come up sometime throughout this game. But really, really solid play, I think, from SOT upcoming on this tier and what he's going to be able to bring. And really good play so far from the Dragons. Again, not a huge neutral objective has fallen just yet. Gold Fury spawned up and kind of sitting there. And that's going to be, I think, a big key for being able to maintain this lead. A little under 1,000 gold ahead as it is.
Inbound takes some damage, falls back to safety though as Panda Cat's ultimate comes out to keep him alive. There's the River's Rebuke. Zapman though just gonna ride the Bifrost. Thunder Crash disrupts, but Zapman makes it to safety all the same. But inbound was collected by Sam, and Sam gets the kill. Baronic though can't find I'm a Monster. Sam has Aegis and Beads, double safety relics, and the Aegis keeps him alive there as Baronic comes in for I'm a Monster. And worth noting how that fight goes, Baronic has a big lead in experience over Hurwin, about a level and a half, and Sam has about that same in the jungle, so him setting up that kill and surviving there, pretty critical to try and keep pace over layers.
Well, this is a good rotation, though, from the Scarabs. They trade out inbound. It always kind of sucks. Again, when your support dies, they don't feel good about it, but they feel nice knowing that they're going to be the ones who live. Zap stays alive twice here, has to use his ult, his beads, his Aegis, but he manages to walk away from the pressure of the Dragons. But they swing. That kill, okay, whatever. They get the purple and the red buff on the side of the Scarabs. Again, just kind of furthering their lead. Still hovering around 1,000 and trying to push it to the limit here, Finch. I think they also have a really good grouping. I said this earlier, but I'll double down on it. The fact that when they come to the neutral objectives, I want to see them start up a Gold Fury because, I mean, Hurwin, the damage from Origin is going to be solid in a team fight. It's not the best for securing an objective. Same thing like Artemis, it's going to be good sustained damage, but it's not necessarily anything I'm worried about trying to swipe away a Gold Fury or anything like that. And I think that that's something the Scarabs can really push to their advantage.
And they do have the advantage, about 1,800 experience in the lead, a little under 1,000 gold in their favor as well. But take a look at the experience. Layers has closed that gap significantly, and maybe now ready for a Fury. At the very least, they get the Oracles, but not time to pull that trigger just yet. They want to know if the Dragons try and come over to the Fury, but they're not looking to start it up themselves, even though they do have likely the best confirmation on the map with I'm a Monster plus Crush. Going to be hard for the Dragons to compete with that if there are any dances, especially with Hurwin behind Baronic, and he has been all game long. This has been a good one for Baronic. I know 1-1-1, not a stellar slash line, but there's only 5 kills. The real important thing is who's making better use of the map. As Baronic hits level 16, and Hurwin still level 13. Not bad from Baronic at all.
Yeah, I mean, being able to get that far ahead. Again, this is the kind of pressure. Look at this presence on Duo as well. Sam kind of stuck in the jungle. Mike not in a good position to really start up a play. Even if the Dragons are able to clap back here, the Scarabs are in a great position to fall back onto a Gold Fury if they aren't even able to steal away some of these objectives.
Nice sash, though. That lands onto Zapman, and that was his death sentence. Beads were only 5 seconds away. Nothing he could do without Beads or Aegis. Maybe the Scarabs shouldn't have gotten aggressive. An inbound falls down for the Windfire Wheels into the Tycho drums. And just like that, a 2-for-0 swing from the Dragons. I like that the Scarabs were trying to get aggressive, but Zapman without the relics was just a bit too far forward.
I mean, 2 kills, though. They're still a little ahead here for the Scarabs. The Dragons don't really have much to follow up on after that fight. So the Scarabs are still semi in control, right? It never is good. I mean, 10 more seconds without
still
anybody on your line. But you're going to be able to fight, especially against Sam. That was easy.
Oh. Yeah, and Baronic knew that that was going to land. Trusted Layers 100%. And had the I'm a Monster follow-up. Big kill for Baronic, whose good game just got gooder. Yeah, I did that poor grammar on purpose. Please don't get in my DMs anymore out there, chat. As they find a nice lead for Baronic in mid. Still not trying to leverage that into a Gold Fury, though. The Scarabs have done a good job in this game to keep a lead over the Dragons. But this is something I'd like to see a bit more. That's why they looked for that pressure on purple, I think, Gore. They really want a pick before they start up this Fury. But this is the idea. At this point, just start it up and see if you've got enough to do what it takes. They don't have I'm a Monster for this, though. So curious.
Yeah.
They wait till now when they don't have their confirmation.
Well, they've got a good zone. PBM's the only one nearby. Yeah, that's going to
Okay,
be relatively free. They might even be able to get Whirlwind off the back of it. Thunder Crash forced out.
But just weird, right? If they could just take it,
a little bit.
Why wait till they don't have their objective? All the same, though, they get it done, and now I like their fight up against Mike, who's locked down by Layers. Fine OK, though, goes right towards Baronic, forces out his beads early, and Mike drops the River's Rebuke, but SOT is here. Riptide buys some time, Lawbringer used, and that should be it for Mike. SOT gets a critical kill, Fine OK falls as well, and who needs I'm a Monster? Solar Scarabs get it done with the SOT double kill. The Gold Fury's theirs, and Panda Cat now a sitting duck on this Artemis as Layers gets a double as well. The Scarabs have completely routed the Dragons.
I mean, really, Sam left with literally nothing to do.
Who
You can
needs
get your
I'm a
speed
Monster?
buff, that's about it. Yeah, I mean, who needs it? The Baronic comes back up during that fight. Doesn't have to use it. The damage is going to be good there. Honestly, I like the rundown. This could be a really good run to a Pyromancer. They still have an advantage. Maybe even enough time to start up a Fire Giant. The Scarabs have all 5 people. Sam might have to kind of hang over here, hope that no wards come down over him. He's going to need some vision and some help, because this feels like a free objective.
And 3 insofar that they had already paid for it, back by winning that Gold Fury fight so handily. They've got the Fire Giant down to half. They know Sam is here, and stealing going to be nigh impossible for this Najah. Maybe a ring bounce as he takes 1 up into the sky. The Scarabs grab the Fire Giant less than 19 minutes into the game, and Sam gonna fall here as well. At least he doesn't use his relics. He'll have those once he respawns. That would have been a losing effort, but what a turnaround from the Scarabs. And all it took was just walking up to the objective and starting it up. That's what the approach was from the Scarabs when they went over there.
And look at the slash lines right now. I mean, SOT's 3-0-2, Layers is 4-0-3. Like, both of them are doing incredibly well in terms of their progression. The dual lanes may be lagging a little bit behind, but it doesn't necessarily matter for them, again, because the lead they built up early on, kind of bullying out the Dragons, and let's face it, even a 0-1-3 Heimdall feels like it's going to have a little more presence in the late game than an Artemis, right? So the Scarabs just in an all better position. Lots of gold on the map for them to still get 6 towers standing on the side of the Dragons. It's going to change pretty soon with this Fire Giant buff. That's going to line their pockets pretty heavily with gold. And Finch, it's going to be a tough, tall task to lose from a lead like this one. I think that the Scarabs are in a really good position to keep pioneering it. And I said it earlier at the beginning of the game, I'll say it now, 20 minutes in, they just have a solid draft for this period of the game. I think in a 5-on-5 grouping, it's very difficult to peel when someone like Layers is going to be able to use his ult and get to the back line, cause a lot of trouble for Whirlwind and Panda Cat. Whirlwind is still 3 levels down in mid, so he's playing catch-up rather than being able to really engage in this fight. The Scarabs there are showcasing exactly how strong a team they are.
They are, and it's been memento mori for the Dragons, remembering they are mortal here this week. A loss to the Bolts already, and now the Scarabs in an excellent position 20.5 minutes into this game to start a siege of their own. Still 2 minutes left and tons of towers to collect. Those tier 2s in particular representing 4,500 gold between them, plus a little extra from this tier 1 here in left, and that'll really balloon this lead out of control if they can find all three. The Dragons just misstepping after missteps. Some Naja misplays early from Sam. Seems as though Panda Cat and this Artemis is having trouble finding relevancy as well. And then to talk about how well the Scarabs have played around SOT in this one. He was really the big difference maker in that post-fight on the Gold Fury and why they had such an easy time at that FG. Good work from him. And now at that tier 2 and left down, they consider threatening that Phoenix. With only 3 there, they'll fall off and head towards the mid-tier 2.
This is a not great position, I think, for Fine. Okay, look, you're King Arthur. You're probably going to be able to live for a little while. In fact, looks like the Scarabs are not going to chase him down. There's better things on the map than trying to chase a King Arthur who's under your tier 2 in mid. It's the other tier 2 in mid. You can just run it down. You still got Fire Giant for another minute and plus. So you're going to be able to knock this one down. More gold for their pocket. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe pressure out a Phoenix here. Although 21 minutes in, it's one of those things, it's a little awkward to try and group up for it. Although if they have the vision now with the minions showing it off, I mean, it's a 3v5. They could be able to find some easy pressure over here. They still have a minute to work with. Knock down one last tower, knock down a Phoenix. It's all doable for them.
It certainly is. A really comfortable lead. They took all the tier 2 towers exactly as we would have wanted. A 10k gold lead at this point in the game, though Sam's work on this tier 2 and right will cut into that just a bit. He's working on some defense in the middle of his build, as he knows he needs some survivability. But what a turnaround from the Scarabs. And listen, I don't think that they were dominating Game 1, but they certainly were in Game 1 with a chance to win it. And now, improving on that here in Game number 2, and taking a commanding lead 22.5 minutes in. They're going to go to the Oni Fury. They are not slowing down this money train. They want more. And they still have plenty of time. Another minute before the Fire Giant spawns on the other side of the map. That's where Scarabs are going to set up. And Gore, I got to ask you a tough question. Do you want the Dragons to come out and defend this Fire Giant, or just stay at the base and wait on their Phoenixes?
Honestly, I don't think there's any point in trying to defend it. Like, Fine Oak, they might be able to get a good fight around it, but, I mean, once Baronic, like, I'm a Monster is up, therefore Fire Giant should go to the Scarabs, right? Like, there's a lot, a very, very difficult amount of effort. I think, like, Baronic would literally have to use the ult poorly to miss the Fire Giant, and I don't think that's going to happen. He's been playing pretty much on point here throughout this game as Scylla. And so I think this is one of those moments where you probably let it go to the wayside, knowing that your objective secure isn't going to be that great. You might be able to force a fight awkwardly around, as of right now, maybe the left-hand side, get back into it, but I think they're going to be able to fight well under a Phoenix. It's a good defensive composition from the Dragons, although they're still playing a little bit of catch-up, just 1 level down now for Heroine, but 2 levels down for Panda Cat. They're still trying to figure out how to get back into this. The Scarabs can dictate everything they want to do and more, and this Fire Giant Pyromancer combo should come right into their lap.
Looks like the Jade Dragons agree with you, Gore. No chance they can contest this Fire Giant. I think you're right, just considering how good I'm a Monster is at confirming that objective. Maybe a chance for them to take this tier 1 and left, but that feels like a real small consolation prize when you know what the enemy team is doing. They're getting their second, count it, second Fire Giant of the game, and we're not even 25 minutes into this one yet. And now the Scarabs get to start the actual work of closing this game out, of sieging these Phoenixes properly, and then trying to take this into a Game 3 and see if they can actually put the Jade Dragons down the second time that the Dragons would have fallen in the week if the Scarabs not only win this, but find a way to win another. That all is way in the future, though, Gore. This is the siege. How do you want the Scarabs to play this?
Well, I like this 3-2 split. I think SOT is in a position where he's not necessarily over here for the pressure on mid that he can provide, but the loop around that him and Layers are capable of doing. They either get the Phoenix for free, or they get pressure onto the back line of the Dragons. This is a really good split for them. I like the way they're playing it. They do need minions still, though. That's the hard part for the Scarabs. Even with Fire Giant, you're only 24 minutes in, so they're playing it careful. Inbound's going to be able to get aggressive, though. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel's available.
Well, they got to push in, so they drop the River's Rebuke to isolate. Inbound, getting hit by the Tycho drums. Thunder Crash from Heroine as he moves in, and at the very least, inbound will be cleaned up. So 3 ultimates down for the Dragons in Heroine's, Mike's, and Panda Cat, and it does net them inbound. Looks like the Scarabs have to fall back for now. But once they have inbound back, they'll still have, what, about 2 minutes left to start working towards another siege or so? Maybe about a minute or so. So they'll have plenty of time to try this siege again, and they might even take this opportunity to strip the jungle and keep expanding their lead.
exactly what you want, right? Take away any sort of comeback potential that might exist on the Dragons. They're already over 10k up on the Scarab, so you're feeling
pretty commanding
about that. Go ahead and grab yourselves an enhanced red buff, some lifesteal sprinkled into that. And now it's going to be up to the Dragons to make a play, but I don't know if this is the target you want.
They got Fine OK. Sam lands back in the crush. Excuse me, they got SOT. Fine OK moves up. SOT Lawbringer's up and over the wall. Now Zapman gonna need to get out through the Bifrost, and he just barely does. Has to use beads, and that gets him out. Meanwhile, now it's Layers' turn, and he cleans up Sam for soccer, but Mike kills him in trade with that Good Rivers Rebuke. SOT and Zapman has to back. Veronic's ult now down. And the Jade Dragons, yes, they keep the Solar Scarabs at bay, as I've been messing up teams all week. Go ahead and find some weird Photoshop to put up the Solar Scarabs. But at this point, they're still very much in the lead. It's still 10,000 gold, and they're still feeling comfortable for this next Fire Giant, which they'll likely take again before starting another siege.
I mean, you can ignore the experience chart, although only to a certain extent, right? Once you hit 20, it does still kind of keep ticking of all the experience you pick up in the game, but it does showcase how well they were able to pioneer that lead early on and all the farm that the Dragons had to make up for after the Scarabs hit 20. But if you look at the gold, yeah, okay, technically you don't get the Phoenixes that you started out for, but at the end of the day, you've been set up for a good position in the Fire Giant. You still have it on the most important members, I would argue, at least in terms of Zapman, Baronic having a little bit of a damage boost, SOT having that sustain come through. So you could still fight for the next 45 seconds if you so please. But there's a Primal Fury coming up. There's a Fire Giant coming up in a little over a minute. I think they can work with whatever they have to really drive this one home. And at the end of the day, the most that they lose, again, inbound Layers going down there, I think it just showcases where the Scarabs are able to apply their pressure. They take down Sam and cause a lot of trouble for the Dragons, and the Dragons had to do it all mostly under their Phoenixes. So I think the Scarabs still control, let's say 75, maybe even more % of the map at this point.
And they'll take down this Primal, which should give them even better dominance at this next FG fight than they already have. But look at this positioning from the Dragons. I mean, this is early. Fire Giant not here for another minute. But they are stepping up around the Fire Giant pit. They've got some decent warding down, too. They'll have some information about this Fire Giant push once the Solar Scarabs get there and start it up. But I don't think there's any way around what a good position the Scarabs are now in. Over 10,000 gold in their favor. All the starters upgraded from Bluestone to Bumba's Hammer to Pendulum of Ages. Still no Compassion. I noticed that about Inbound last game. He kind of waited on upgrading his Benevolence. And this time, as we know he's got money to spare, he must be doing it on purpose and choosing to go elsewhere in the build. He's got a Nemean in there. Whatever it takes to make sure Sam and Pandacat are not the ones that end this game and take him down. But the Dragon's going to float around. Still feels like probably you don't want them to come out and defend here, Gore.
I mean, again, if you get in there and as the Dragons, you maybe force the Scarabs into an awkward fight, but do you secure a Fire Giant if they choose not to fight? Not really. So you have to hope that you can find the pick. It's not something I think you'd go dying for. Maybe you can walk out a little bit, get some vision. They have more steal potential. Last time around, it was, what, Sam that was over around the Fire Giant? Or maybe that was the first time around. It's something that I think you can hang out in this territory for, but if the Scarabs decide to drop the Fire Giant, you're not going to be able to come in and scoop it up. You have to win on a fight where they're making mistakes, and so far, there haven't been a lot of those, Finch.
No, and the Scarabs have played this one really clean. Beads, all the relics really up on every side here. The Dragons have a couple of finished 6-slot items, Spectral for Fine OK, Kin Size for Pandacat. Looks like Tier 2 of Obshard there for Hurrywind as well. But for the most part, significantly behind in items. So they all have their starters upgraded at the very least. And the Scarab's going to go slowly about this. Looks like they know the Dragons are nearby. And going to be hard for the Dragons to have a good read on the Fire Giant's health, so they move in right away. SOT, the one the furthest forward, alongside Inbound, who's got Sam. Layers there, too, and Sam for Soccer low already. But really not all that low, as Inbound goes into the ultimate and starts spinning to win. Picks up no one, but does get the beads out from Mike, and they know they have Hurwin now a bit low. And the Scarabs start to move in. Inbound the first one in. He doesn't have his ultimate, but this should be a good enough initiation as Hurwin goes up into the Tycho drums and is low already. Layers cutting his way through the backline, and the first one that falls is Hurwin. Pandacat falls right behind. It's a 2-for-0 for the Scarabs at the start of this fight. But they've got some low health bars, especially Layers, but it doesn't like the Dragons are in any position to capitalize.
Killing
Yeah, and there's not much they can do to defend from this point forward. I mean, Sam, PBM...
Maybe they just end.
These are all setup gods. Yeah, I think you just run this one home. 30 seconds without any of the big damage hitters, and admittedly, again, PandaCat hasn't been able to do a whole ton on this Artemis outside of Die. Got a kill earlier, but that's about it. I think this is going to be it for the Scarabs.
I mean, for what it's worth, he is doubles that man's damage, but does that matter when the Scarabs are the one on the precipice of victory with the Titan down to half? With the Titan down to a quarter, the Scarabs able to take Game 2 over the Dragons. We're going to Game 3. And now the Dragons looking very mortal to me here, Gore. Not just the Bolts, but the Scarabs finding a win as well.
I mean, the Scarabs, like, everything that went wrong in Game 1, neutral objective control, better. Draft, better. Play, better. Like, everything from top to bottom just felt better, and they didn't really give, like, they did what the Dragons do to other teams to the Dragons. They did not give them many options to get back into there. There were no chances for fights. The ones they had, unfortunately, the Dragons faltered on the mechanics. Like, I mean, early on, maybe it's a closer game, but Sam didn't get the sashes, didn't get the ults he wanted. So the Scarabs just get to run that one all the way home, and if the third game goes that way, then it's not going to be a very close one either.
This is exciting, though. The Scarabs with a chance to put yet another scratch on the crown of the Kings and maybe even knock the crown all the way off. We'll get a chance to see right after this break.
Hey there, Smite fans. Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce that the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
What's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the Smite Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible Smite experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's @Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
And you're telling me an alien wore this?
the Solar Scarabs join the Olympus Bolts as the second team in the SPL this year to take a single game off of the Jade Dragons. The Dragons had not lost not only a set, but not only a single game, or not only a set, but not a single game coming into this weekend. On Friday, they lost a set to the Bolts, and now headed to another Game 3 Mifflin against the Solar Scarabs.
Look, man, the Scarabs, despite the odds, despite being the overwhelming underdogs in this set, have come out swinging, haven't they, David? It's an absolute treat to watch. This goes to show how competitive this league really is, man. And I got to highlight a singular player in particular. Maybe I let you talk about this tweet for a second. Cool jersey, SOT sick. I got to say it.
Yep,
there we go. Talk about it.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, it's a sweet jersey. Look, if you want the same jersey that Greta is wearing here, then grab yourself one at shop.smiteproleague.com. Look, I told you! The Solar Scarabs, they got themselves a fan base here, and they're willing them forward to a win here over the Jade Dragons. Greta's rooting for you as well as a whole bunch more here at Solar Scarabs. So best of luck in game number 3. But the Jade Dragons, they got some fans at their back here as well. But let's talk about what happens in game 2 before we even discuss game number 3 here, Mifflin. Similar vibes from the Scarabs as game 1. Slight fumble with the FG play there in the middle of the game, but still clean outside of that. It takes clean to beat the Jade Dragons. The Solar Scarabs had it.
They really did, man. It's not often I get to say solo diff in a match that FineOK is in, and it's not referring to FineOK, but I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. SOT didn't push FineOK in lane. He didn't dominate him there. Instead, it was about team fight presence, and this play was really where it started going. SOT alone in the back against 3 finds a double kill on the priority targets, and from there, I mean, that was the story the entire time. SOT creating infinite space for his team to allow everyone else to operate. It was just great play through and through.
Yeah, SOT looked fantastic in this game. Layers continues to roll. Baronic was there with the follow-up damage. Panda Cat was looked at a good few times here in this game, Mifflin. We wondered how the Artemis pick would look. You think that's a one and done after a game like this?
I feel like, if anything, if we were to see an Artemis get locked in again, it's not going to be Panda Cat. I want to see the reversed BM. Zapman locks it in to show him how it's really done. That would be super cool, but I doubt it. Both of these guys got a lot on the line here. Third game and a best of 3. I don't think we're going to off-meta picks anymore.
No, I don't think so either. Top 3 there for the Solar Scarabs. Feeling pretty good. Look, the damage numbers were there for the Jade Dragons. Panda Cat out-damaging Zapman by about 6,000 or so. Hurrywin supplying some damage as well, but the team calling was just a little bit more effective there from the Solar Scarabs. And now, Miff, we're in a rare spot where the Dragons look a bit out of sorts, not only in the set, but this week, don't they? I mean, they lost to the Bolts earlier on in the week on Friday. Now they're on the verge, depending on how Game 3 goes, of maybe losing to the Solar Scarabs. It's not a Dragons team that we're used to seeing, so now it's suddenly bounce back time for the Jade Dragons? I'm not used to saying that one, but we'll have to see what lies in store in picks and bans for game number 3. You heard that right, game number 3 between the Jade Dragons and the Solar Scarabs. Still, Jade Dragons in this first pick slot, a lot to identify as a threat. Sobek has been a very popular first ban here, Mifflin. Not sure the Jade Dragons will feel the need to change that up.
No, might as well ban that one out. Keep the bans going, rolling. It's tried and true. The Jade Dragons can adjust their picks a little bit. I mean, no reason to go to the Artemis that deep in the draft. Outside of that, I can't really argue with the bans that we've seen so far within this set, so I think it's more so about the play on field. I want to see the Solar Scarabs reprise what we saw in Game 2. Have Bobby play that aggressive pick inside the Jing Shen. He looked so much better in Game 2 because he was allowed to use that jump aggressively to get into the backline, to find these multi-man roots and knockups for his team. It was great play from inbound on the Jing Shen. So why not run that one back? So far, though, bans staying largely the same, Dave. I don't know, man. I'm not expecting too many shift-ups.
Yeah, I don't know if much changes here. If the Jade Dragons ban out Circuit, then it'll be 3 games in a row with the same bans, and it sure is. And if the Solar Scarabs ban out Tiamat, it'll be 3 games in a row with the same bans, and I'm not sure that one changes there. And hey, wouldn't you guess it? Solar Scarabs will take away the Tiamat at the end of it. All right, so now the Jade Dragons, they've got themselves first pick here in this game. A lot of power still on the table. It has been a fine okay pick, at least in Game 2 it was for King Arthur. Instead, Scylla for Hurrywind and away from Baronic is where the priority lies.
That is an early Scylla pick, so you can expect some pretty decent matchups to get locked in by the Scarabs. I know for a fact, when I used to play against Lairs, and anytime we would have a Scylla early on in our drafts, he would always go towards that Awelish inside of scrims and inside of tournament as well. So we'll see if that still rings true up in 2021. It's been about 3 or 4 years since that happened, though, so maybe we see some adaptations. Solar Scarabs, though, finally have an opportunity to pick up King Arthur for themselves, and it's a pretty strong pick. Can't argue against it. Locked in, top 2.
Yeah, not after what SOT just did there in Game 1 on tier. If he can replicate that performance and continue to out-pressure Fine OK, not something I imagined saying today, then the Solar Scarabs might just roll on to a win here in Game 3 and in this set entirely. Cannot understate the impact that SOT had there in Game number 2. So time for the Jade Dragons to answer back here. Still a lot of power on the board. Looking for everything outside of a mid laner. Sam for Soccer, maybe an opportunity to grab himself a priority pick here. Mifflin Hunter as well now is in an interesting spot for Panda Cat, where it was Artemis there in Game 2, Ho Yi there in Game 1, so one of those two, the Jingwei, hasn't been seen yet here today, so some interesting options for the Jade Dragons Hunter, but for the time being, it'll be the Thor for Sam for Soccer.
Thor locked in. Sam looking a little bit serious. Decent setup for the Scylla. Dunk down. I'm a monster with a double tap from Hammer. That's going to kill just about anybody, tanks included, throughout that mid-game phase. A little bit later on might take some more effort. Panda Cat sticking with these slightly off-meta picks. Rom locked in.
3 games, 3
Scales
picks.
incredibly well to Lakin. No way. No way, bro. I'm going to lose my mind if that heads out. Yeah, Heimdall mid, give me the Zardomis, bro. Nah, they won't do it. They won't do it. They're trolling. Rom ult
I think you're right on this one.
Up against Heimdall. If he uses the Bifrost to escape to a far distance, Rom should be able to chase it out whenever he needs. Seems like Panda Cat has not forgotten about that tweet. Still looking for those solo kills.
All right, so Rom for Panda Cat. It is not going to be the Zardomis here in Game 3. Instead, it'll be the Xing Qin back over there for Inbound. Do you think the Xing Qin found some value there, Mifflin, in Game 2? Maybe some of the reason that we see it back here for Game 3.
Yeah, he looked so much more comfortable on this Xing Qin. There were at points where he's able to get up into Panda Cat's face, hit him with a ferocious roar. All of a sudden, Panda Cat, with a slightly unorthodox build, was still autoing for about 60 damage in the late game. He was making it so hard for Panda Cat to get involved in those team fights, which still goes to show how strong Panda Cat is. He was able to double up on Zapman's damage at the end of that one. But so far, I think that the Scarabs have come away with a very strong top 3.
Wow, and look at the priority bands then down the stretch. The last 2 that the Solar Scarabs will take away here, a couple PBM picks, the Ymir and the Yamoja, definite stands out there. Nothing that you want to give Mike here in Game number 3. On the opposite side, Layers, who has also been on a tear here this set. Back-to-back good games for the Solar Scarabs jungler, is going to get targeted a little bit as well. The Tsukiyomi taken off the board as well as the Robin, so very clear threats remaining for both teams.
Yeah, and even the Thor pickup for the Jade Dragons can act as a pseudo-ban towards Layers. That is one of his favorite picks as well. Seems like Layers going to hold off a little bit on his own jungle selection, and instead Baronic going to be taking Merlin into the mid lane. This is a very good team fight already that I'm seeing from the Scarabs here, man. Between King Arthur and Xing Qin as a front line, a backline burn of Heimdall and Merlin, whatever jungler Layers picks up, I hope should be able to shore up that front line a little bit more so as well. But the Jade Dragons are bringing aggression, aren't they? Thor, the second he takes over to level 5, gonna get involved. Ares, the second he takes over to level 3, gonna get involved. And then Camazot's out of solo, potentially. We have seen Thor go solo before in the past in the hands of Fine OK, so there is a slight flex potential there. But I think it is more than likely going to be Camazot's out of solo. Has some decent 1v1 potential before that Sonagai gets picked up by King Arthur.
We'll see what Fine OK is able to get done on this pick. Giving up a lot of that early pressure once Thor hits 5. If you rotate it over there towards that solo lane. Set! We forget about Set every once in a while. Set still open here with the 10th and final pick of this draft. Do you think we're just going to operate under the assumption that it's Thor in the jungle for Sam for Soccer, and then Set then for Layers over for the Solar Scarabs. Do you think Set has the ability to keep up with the pressure of Thor here in the early mid-game?
Set has the potential to snowball similarly to Thor, but keeping up with the rotations, it's going to be Thor. Madman teleports and also can go up to the sky and have a pseudo-global ultimate. But I thought we had seen the last of Set until the shell nerfs came through. With the block stacks, we've seen triple, even quadruple shell up against Layers in particular on this pick. And the last time he locked it in, I was surprised that he's willing to go back to it here. And Shell is just generally really good. I think that he's going to have a hard time finding pressure post-level 12 if we do see Jade Dragons show some respect in the relic selection.
Do you think, now I want to pivot the conversation just a bit towards the supports. We've already talked about Xing Chen, and I think that's kind of been covered by us here for Inbound. Ares for PBM, is this the type of composition you can see Ares excelling into and with, if you kind of look at both sides?
Ares has a great matchup in a Merlin Set. Even Heimdall struggles a little bit. That Bifrost, you got to stand still to teleport. Well, when you're standing still, pretty easy to land that cripple chain, isn't it? And, well, that chain doesn't just cripple, it does an immense amount of damage. So I think that Ares has some sneaky good matchups here, as well as the knockup immunity with the Flames going to be pretty strong, and a Xing Chen himself. He should be able to get involved, but if he falls behind, Ares has very little comeback mechanics, and it feels like the Jade Dragons draft in general has very low comeback mechanics. They can't fall behind too much in the early, or they might just get swamped out.
Mifflin, I don't think the weight of this game can be understated. For so long, the Scarabs have just said, just wait, we're getting better, and you'll see it soon, and we've seen it already here in the set. Win or not, the Solar Scarabs have come to play. Will the Jade Dragons stave off defeat for the second time this week? Let's find out in Game 3.
And Dave, you are all too right. The Dragons could drop 2 sets back to the Bolts and to the Scarabs. Not even the teams we thought were going to be gunning for the top of the mountain, but the Scarabs knew all along that they had this within. Time for them to show us. Layers is on this set. Merlin for Baronic. Inbound on the Xing Chen he's liked. But over on the other side, Mike on the Ares. Thor for Sam. Camazons for Fine. Feels like they are kind of leaning a little bit into this early game, except for Rom, who going to thrive once he gets some items slotted in.
And it feels like an interesting dynamic. Like you said, the Dragons not only going for early game, but it feels like a lot of comfort picks on their side, whereas the Solar Scarabs, I mean, they take a lot of what they just had and upgrade it. I think the only one that you could maybe argue, and I think it's more lateral than anything, is going to be the Set and the Tsukiyomi, right? Because Layers was able to get really deep, but he's been having a hell of a day, so I don't really care what he's playing. He's going to look good on it no matter what. And this is exactly what we wanted to see out of him. I mean, you go back to, what is it, the caster predictions that we recorded. I don't know every single quote that made it into that video, but I remember a lot of it was around the air of how it was going to take a little bit for the Scarabs to come online, but I remember saying that specifically when it came to lands, I thought this team was going to be dangerous. It seems like they hit that phase a lot faster.
Panda Cat rolling in aggressive, inbound, caught in the chains, and Polar Bear Mike finding first blood. Looks like the Dragons, the sleeping dragon, has finally awoken, and they get aggressive before the 1 minute mark, and they are not done. Zapman, the next one up for some pressure. He'll ride the Bifrost because he must, as the Dragons already finding first blood.
I mean, really good. Uses all of Mike's mana, though, so he's going to have to get out of there. But, again, not a crazy deficit. It goes on to Mike as opposed to Panda Cat, so it's not necessarily going to be a big lead for the carries. And while it might be, a little bit of experience there for Mike, Inbound's still going to be able to be level 2 here, still have a lot of impact. In fact, being able to create a lot of pressure. We already saw that last game on the Xing Chen. So Panda Cat needs to play a lot more careful. I think he's stepping up way further than somebody should. Maybe around level 5, there's going to be a jump up. Ares being able to engage maybe a little easier than what Inbound has, but with both Blink, both big team fight ults, it's going to be dangerous for either side to fight.
Mike Witten went right to Zapman, who'd have to use beads to get the Bifrost while crippled. He does not and ends up staying nearby, just taking the damage. This Ares Rom duo lane is getting to be quite aggressive over here in the long lane, isn't it? And I'm sure they'll find some aggression in some other spots, but they are starting it off here And you heard them talk about it on the desk there, Gore, with Veronic not having the CC immunity and Layers not having it. They could be in trouble once this area starts to rotate and look for those no escapes. The Scarabs gonna have to show us they can fight through a nice little pocket pick for Mike that he'll pull out from time to time when he knows he really needs to get aggressive and control the game. And it's happening already.
Well, and the same application can be applied to the other side, right? Like, everybody has beads in this game except for the supports because they know exactly what their job is going to be, and that is driving home the aggression. And there's a little more CC immunity available for Sam for soccer than what you're going to see out of Set, but Set, at this point, level 4. Sam's going to hit a spike at 5 when he gets that Anvil of Dawn. Layers is going to hit a spike at 6 just thereafter, right, where he's going to start being able to find that snowball potential. And honestly, with the way the fights have been going early on, like, yeah, we've seen Mike get aggressive, but not a lot out of Sam so far this game. Once he hits 5, maybe that'll change, but realistically, it's a better pace for Layers, I think, throughout the duration of this kind of early, then that transition to mid. As long as it stays at this rate, Layers is going to be able to start driving home more of the jungle.
Well, I think it is worth noting as Inbound gets called out by a ton of damage. I'm a monster, not even needed. Mike finds his second kill of the game as he's on a warpath. But the Scarabs deserve some credit. They looked for a blue buff invade, and Sam just was not there. So that meant Final K lost out on blue. Gonna make his life a bit tougher. Usually Camazotz has the health sustain of those pools and the mana sustain of the buff. Doesn't have it over there, but already the Dragons are getting aggressive in their mid 3v3. Sam, Hurry, and Mike finding a nice kill.
Well, now it's going to be a little more worrisome for the Scarabs, Finch. I mean, again, gold lead, experience lead, not crazy, although level 5 for Mike versus 3 right now for Inbound. So Inbound's going to have to sit back, kind of siphon some of the farm from mid, maybe go back over, siphon some farm from Zap to try and hit that level 5 mark. Otherwise, it's going to be this.
Inbound pulled in. He doesn't have the ult for CC immunity yet, so he's a free third kill. Mike, Sam, and Hurry win yet again ready. And doesn't it kind of feel like the Jade Dragons took the gloves off? They walked in with a younger boxer, said, hey, I don't need to put my headgear on, but they took a tough one to the jaw. And now they said, okay, playtime's over. And they are swinging for the fences. It's just onto Inbound, but already a good omen for Dragons fans out there, as this time they're here to defend the blue buff on time. Perfect.
And I'd go so far as to say that maybe that was overkill. They don't have their ults to fight over here. Layers, it's going to be SOT who gets the kill. Layers, who drives a lot of that damage home, though. Even if you don't get the blue buff, that's a really good return kill, because like you said, the only person they've killed is Inbound. Supports, you're going to be behind anyway. The biggest unfortunate portion right now for the Scarabs is the fact that Inbound isn't level 5 yet, but if they go for this red buff invade, he's going to be able to make up for some of that experience. He should be able to hit it pretty soon. So that 3-for-1 lead doesn't really amount to as much.
No, it doesn't. The Scarabs may be losing these picks in mid, where the Dragons are willing to commit 3 ults to get it. But when it comes to these buff invades, the Scarabs are out in front of the Dragons, and Sam using that hammer to secure it, that feels a little out of pocket, doesn't it? I mean, he had nowhere to go afterwards, and the Scarabs just walked him down. Might have been worth letting that buff go if he could have repositioned. Now he has fallen behind Layers, and something worth considering for Sam going forward is how he uses the cooldown of this hammer, because it's both a great source of damage for him and his reposition tool, and that time used it for damage and ended up needing it to reposition later.
Now that Inbound's level 5, Blink is still up. I expect it's going to be a little more difficult. We'll have to use his ult. If PBM goes in, that's his CC immunity. That's the only way to really survive that right now without getting pulled in. And so there is a chance that he's going to have to use it defensively. But there's also a chance that the inverse could be true. He can use it aggressively, lock down Mike the same way. And that'll be a little bit more for the Scarabs. The follow-up, though, is really where the things maybe fall apart. Layers, if he's around, that's going to be a lot of damage. Veronic will apply a lot, but Whirlwind has a lot more confirmable big bursts to really follow up on that ult. So that mid one-on-one, or I guess mid in the 3v3 is going to be the most important part of this. As well as which one finishes their items a little bit sooner here. You can see a little more strength and some lifesteal over there for Veronic, picked up versus cooldown right now for Whirlwind. And it looks like that might be the case in the items as well. Maybe Pin coming online earlier for Veronic. That Charon's coin has been very popular. Whereas Whirlwind, no real reason I can think to go for a Divine Ruin this game, so probably looking for that Spear of Desolation first item. It's going to be a big power spike for him, and that's something that Veronic's going to have to keep in mind.
Fine, okay, it finally has a blue buff, though. He's feeling good. as they showed up in time to defend. The Scarabs weren't in position for yet another buff invade attempt. So that's one more for him on his way. I think you're right, though. Brana got to make sure that he's considering where his moments are as Layers ganking Sam. Or did he indeed? Looks like the red buff dropped on the order side. We'll see when Heroin comes in. But it sure looked like Layers got in there in time.
I mean, even if he didn't, I know it looked like he was able to strip a little bit of it. Either way, it gave him a lot of pressure on the left side. Now they're going to be able to grab that Scorpion. Yeah, it looks like Heroin's going to go snag that one. So it does get confirmed towards the very end there by Sam. But Layers creates a lot of space for his team to capitalize on it. Now enhanced buffs on their side, and being able to start up that Gold Fury and kind of dictate the pace of that side of the match. Kind of surprised. I mean, 3 kills early on, go the side of Ares. Look, I mean, still technically a level ahead, but not the pressure I expected to see from the Dragons after what felt like a really good lead for them. And I think a lot of that has to do with Layers and SOT. They've been having a really, really good set so far. And I think going from Tier to King Arthur just makes SOT even more powerful. That's where a lot of this aggression comes. He picks up a Mystical Mail even right now. I think that's just going to have him feeling good in this lane, make it so that FineOK is really going to start having some issues, especially getting away from a lot of these circumstances.
Gold Fury now up, though. The Scarabs took down that Greater Scorpion and spawned this in. Dragons had just now a pretty good rotation towards it, but they don't have all the data we do that the Scarabs had taken that moment to back. So the Dragons will happily settle for a little bit of information on that side of the map. They'll know if the Scarabs elect to come over there and grab that Fury, or at least attempt to soon, as Solar Troll going for a buff invade. The wall comes down, just barely, not enough from SAT, who put his damage over the top. And so that but defended. That's been a pretty big point of interest so far here for the Scarabs. That's where their big invades have been. And now the Dragons starting to get back in control of it themselves. SOT now, though, with the Reinforced Greaves into Mystical Mail. Not that Stone of Guile we've gotten used to seeing back there. It gives him all those physical procs and still adds on a bit to his damage if he can stick in close. That's going to be a hard item for FineOK to deal with once SOT gets on top of him, as the Scarab's not going to look for another red buff invade.
This is, all in all, though, a completely different Scarabs team than it feels like we've watched for 3 weeks in a row. I mean, everything that they have been doing up to this point seems easy to forget as of right now against the Dragons. The way they're looking right now, again, whether or not you can argue that the Dragons are at full force, I think they're playing really well on the side of the Scarabs. They're playing cleanly, having much better team fights, much better team presence than they had before, and Layers is popping off in an area where he wasn't prior.
Ooh, that's a lot of damage very quickly. No blinks, though, for the Scarab, so FineOK should be allowed to back in this spot. But they're going to lose some pressure on this jungle now that Solar Troll has some room to go looking around. He steps back in, proxy farms right through the Tier 1, and now he and Layers can look for a collapse onto Sam, who finds himself a wall and retreats, doesn't bite off more than he can chew. And because Sam defended that jungle, even though SOT has the lane priority now, there really isn't much for him to do with it. He'll just have to come back and maybe just look at FineOK rather as he clears up that wave.
I have to figure out a way, if you're the Dragons right now, to start clapping back. I mean, right now, you've been able to secure your buffs. Like, that's the most proactive thing they've really been able to do since those kills on to inbound earlier. It is a 2-level lead from Mike. Like, again, something that was small has now surmounted into something big. It's only worth noting because that means they'll hit 12 at this rate faster than inbound. Maybe have a little more of a presence, but he's not going to get the chain onto Zap. So all of the pressure that they've been looking for just keeps falling by the wayside.
And they're going to find FineOK over and right without the Bat Out of Hell ultimate. Should be an easy one, and Layers gets the kill. More right side dominance for the Scarabs causes problems for the Jade Dragons. That dips the numbers down in favor of the Chaos team. 2,000 gold, 2,800 experience. The Scarabs now really taking it to the Jade Dragons. Maybe having a bit of a collapse here in week number 4.
And Finch, I mean, this is a massive thing for the Scarabs. I mean, like I said, not just team play, but when I highlight it, like, they were second to last in terms of GPM. They were the lowest in terms of team average player damage. They really haven't been able to have a lot of stats going their way into today. Nothing to really support them. I mean, their highest KDA up into this week was only slightly higher than what the Valkyries had. And so this is a great turnaround for them. I mean, this is such a big performance here for Layers, really big performance for SOT. And the other three have been pretty solid off and on throughout the year. Of course, Inbound, I think, looked really, really good there in Game 2. So far, he's been kind of bullied, but it hasn't really affected him that much. Again, he's slightly down behind Mike, but other than that, he's still been able to be aggressive and present in a lot of these fights. This is actually really well played from them, and it stifled the early game that we thought the Dragons were going to have. That's a brilliant start for them. The later this game goes, I'm leaning towards King Arthur, I'm leaning towards Set, I'm leaning towards Heimdall. The only thing they quote-unquote lack on is going to be that objective secure, very similar to game number 1, but with the team fight going their way, they won't need that badly.
So near the Fury are the Dragons, but not going to try and start it up, not in this situation. Secondary relics starting to come in. It's an upgraded shell for Panda Cat, no need for an Aegis here. He feels way more comfortable making it hard for Layers to step up to him. The Scarabs have largely gone with safety relics in their secondary slots. Aegises for Layers, Baronic, and Zapman Beads, Blink for SOT, and Inbound still quite a ways away from his secondary relic. Sam will back, so we'll get a chance to see what he would like to get. Maybe another safety relic for him too, as Pyromancer now in the sight of the Scarabs, and that does seem to be the play. Aegis in there for him, and I don't know that the Jade Dragons are going to make it here in time to contest. The Pyromancer goes to the Scarabs, and the Jade Dragons weren't even there. Yet another objective gone off this map. Starting to feel like the Jade Dragons just aren't really making any moves at all. They had that aggressive early game around this Ares from Mike, and since then they've kind of just been vibing. But the Scarabs are not. They are moving around the map, looking for pressure, punishing Fine OK, and looking for objectives.
In Game 1, the Scarabs were finding a lot of kills, but they weren't really able to find any objectives afterward, right? And that's a crucial part of Smite, right? It doesn't matter. You could read 13-8, but if you're not getting the Gold Furies, if you're not getting the Pyromancers, you're not getting the Fire Giants or the Towers, it doesn't really matter. Game 2, they turn that around. Game 3, they're carrying that same weight. In fact, they're finding it even more so. They don't necessarily need the kills because of the way they've been controlling every other aspect of the map. Whether, again, you want to read that into the Dragons not playing up to par, at least the standard that I have set for them in my mind after the 3 weeks we've seen them play, and admittedly, for 80% of them, what we saw out of them last year, it feels incredible for the Scarabs here to be able to have this amount of control. They do have to maintain it.
Maybe a fourth kill onto Inbound's the plan, but the no escape didn't even connect. Can the snipes connect from Panda Cat? He's got the scope, but no. And Zapman has isolated one more member who will fall back into Merlin damage. It's Mike, who they've got locked down. He goes for the chains, but Zapman drops the bead that allows him out. Now it's time for Layers to come in as the cleanup squad. Good wall, but now it turns into a bad wall as it isolates Panda Cat. The Jade Dragons making the kind of mistakes we almost never see, and the Scarabs absolutely capitalizing. Mike goes down, Panda Cat right behind. It's a double for Layers as the Scarabs continue to run away with this game.
I mean, I felt that 8 ways to Sunday. That was a great wall turned into an abysmal wall the minute you look at Panda Cat's positioning. And again, yeah, you have some steal potential way too late there from Herwin to make that one come through. Fine OK is going to be lucky to get out of this one. I mean, has some survivability because it's Camazotz, but look, the Layers. Of course, I want to give it the credit over to the jungle, but the Scarabs right now are just playing out of their damn minds. The way that they're... Again, it comes down to the small things. The beads from Zapman, like, if you had told... Like, I don't care if you're a Scarabs fan or a Dragons fan, or if you just watch the league, and you look at anything from the last 3 weeks and say the Scarabs are going to beat the Dragons, ignoring what happened here in Week 4, you get laughed at for most of it. I mean, they did not look like a team last week. I mean, they looked like somebody that would fall apart. This is such a massive turnaround for them, and it's very refreshing to see. I was really worried. I'm going to say this very candidly. I thought we were about to have another Obey. I thought it was going to be 10 weeks before we got to see them maybe turn things around. This has been very clean in terms of the Scarabs. Granted, the rest of the game is yet to be seen, but the way they've handled this early game into the mid game has been way, way refreshing compared to what we've seen out of them so far.
It's a good start, and the Dragons don't look nearly as coordinated as we normally see. An all-in commitment for best-case scenario. Inbound, who escaped. Mike drops a no escape on him, and he's not even in range for it, so that hits no one. Zapman does a good job repositioning, and then suddenly that fight ends up in a bad spot where Layers has jumped in, and Panda Cat is on the wrong side of that wall from Sam. And that's an easy kill for Layers to clean up a double, who's now 3-0-2 and 3 levels ahead of Sam for Soccer. This does not seem, as it currently is, very close. And this is very similar to what happened to the Dragons up against the Bolts. Remember, they won game 1, but then the Bolts won 2 convincing games in a row. And here the Scarabs are on a similar trajectory. The Dragons are on the record saying that this undefeated record, this early season, is important. They want to do as well as they can. Looks like maybe they're starting to run into a wall.
And that is not great news for them. Great news here for the Scarabs. And it's one of those things, like I joked about at the end of game 1, we're so used to the Dragons, like whenever they come through, if they win a set, they will always say if one of the games was close or if it's a 3-game set and they lose one, they typically give the pregame answer 2-0, 2-1 if we're trolling, or you ask them afterward and they say, oh yeah, well, you know, we trolled a little in game 1 or game 2. And it's typical to hear that. This isn't trolling, man. This is just bad play out of them so far. It's not been as clean as you had highlighted. And the Scarabs are doing what we're used to seeing the Dragons do. They're taking advantage of it. They're separating them. They're forcing them into awkward scenarios. And if they continue grouping up, this 5-on-5 has just been so clean from them. Layers, again, I'm going to shout him out because he's having a great game. I think this is something that the Dragons need to be a lot more stressed out about. I don't know where they start to target it because Sam hasn't been able to be proactive, and he's now down 2 levels. If he ults into the grouping that is the Scarabs, he's just going to die. He's not going to be able to really set up for his team the way that you want a Thor to do.
His path forward does seem unclear at the moment, with about a 5k gold lead favoring the Scarabs at this point in the game. With an item advantage to go alongside it, it's Jotun's hi-rez into Void Shield for Layers, the kind of semi-bruiserish build that'll really cause problems for Whirlwind of Panda Cat if he's allowed to get off a couple of attacks in a row. So Mike looks to start a fight. No Escape does pull in inbound, who seems perfectly fine just walking away. Fine OK falls back. That's the ultimate for Mike down alongside his Blink and the Shell from Panda Cat. They do get the beads out from Baronic and the Blink from inbound, but that's about all. And now it's the Scarabs' turn to get aggressive. They move right over towards Pyromancer and burn it quickly. Solar Troll moves in. Sam keeps him off with a wall and has to use beads to get away from the ult as I'm a Monster tickles SOT. Up to the air goes Sam, but where can he land? Back towards safety is the answer. And the Scarabs have now taken 2 key ultimates, the Anvil of Dawn and I'm a Monster, away from the Dragons, and they like their odds. They're starting up FG.
I mean, look, worst case scenario, you drop the FG and you kill off some more of the Dragons. Best case scenario, you're able to secure the objective.
So Layers is sticking on top of it. Fine OK is at least into contest, but he's been bullied. The Scarabs get the Fire Giant 20 minutes in, and Fine OK forced to retreat. Mike has chains on inbound and SOT, but Baronic and Layers work together to blow up Fine OK, and this assault is done. The Dragons retreat, and just like that, the Scarabs now have the biggest objective on the map, so they move in. Panda Cat looking to stand his ground and put out damage, but Layers cuts him down where he stands, and with the Fire Giant on all 5 members and Tier 2s before them, the Scarabs are about to balloon yet another game out of control. It's starting to look like a 2-game collapse here from the Dragons back to back.
And this is something, again, the big difference right now, look at how early this FG is. Very comparable to what game 1 and what happened in the pace of that. But the difference is that the Scarabs aren't down 3,000 gold after they're winning these small engagements, right? They're up 10k. This is way more like game 2. And they're going to be able to use beads, maybe a couple pulled here, but I don't know if this is the turnaround.
That's a turnaround play. I'm a Monster, able to connect, and Baronic goes down. SOT still in range as well. He goes right for Hurwin, who does not have beads, and Layers is there to collect, but Hurwin on the way out, the fade away. Posthumous kill takes the Fire Giant off too, and now Layers caught out as well, even using the relics, but the chains still on him, and Fine OK gets a 3rd. Somehow the Dragons up a great engage from Mike, find 3 critical return kills.
Well, they stopped the Scarabs in their tracks, at least for that one. This Fire Giant, look, 2.5 minutes left on it, might be able to knock down the Tier 1s, but realistically, it's probably going to slow down dramatically from there. Any hopes of a Phoenix pretty much dashed for the Scarabs until the next one. But the good news is that the Scarabs already kind of won the objective that mattered, right? I mean, where do you go after this? You can knock down some towers of your own, try to alleviate the pressure of the gold lead that the Scarabs have, but it's not going to be anywhere near what could be as devastating if the Scarabs hadn't gotten that Fire Giant. So well played from them to be able to read it. Now PBM's in trouble.
In fact, been hit by Zapman's ult. That should lock him down underneath the Tier 2. And as Ares, there are no leaps, so Zapman gets the kill. He used his ult to set up. Inbound and Zapman still with Fire Giant. Only tier 2 that's gone down is the one in right. And for now, the Dragons have kept this lead from getting a whole lot worse. But it has still increased a bit. They've used this opportunity to catch up. Sam now, experience-wise, ahead of Layers. Both ADCs are 20. And you can kind of see in the experience charts where that graph came back up. Instead of over 8,000, it's now just about 5,300. And as everyone gets to 20, that matters less. The real big difference is the 6,500 gold or so in favor of the Scarabs. Still lead in mid, still ahead in solo. But other than that, things have started to close in the gap just a little bit. As the Scarabs grab the tier 1 in mid, though, it's clear they're not content with leaving things as they are. They want more.
And I like the aggression. Look, Inbound and SOT are in a good spot to be able to continue getting aggressive and really driving things home. Inbound took that level deficit. Look, he's got 3 deaths, half the kills that the Dragons have are onto him, and he's now a level up. That's exactly the problem I have. All of that priority, you had even highlighted it. There was that fight on left where, like, the best case scenario is they kill Inbound for a 4th time. It just feels like such a weird place to put all of your effort in because it has not phased him at all here. Able to get aggressive. He has his Blink Online, the Horrific. I mean, if he gets in there, whether or not he's even able to land the ult, there's 4 pairs of beads on the other side. That doesn't really matter. He's going to be able to really set up his team or distract him in the way that he has so far. He can upgrade that starter whenever he wants, but last game we had highlighted he didn't really choose to do it. So far this game, he goes for the silver breastplate as opposed to picking it up. Gets that Spectral Online and is feeling really good about their odds. The Fire Giant's going to be coming back up in about a minute. 4 seconds till it falls off from Inbound and Zap. I think the Scarabs are in a good spot to continue controlling this, at least to force the Dragons into an awkward fight. It's going to make Whirlwind or somebody, maybe Sam, maybe Panda, they're going to have to use pretty much everything to look for a steal if they can't get some sort of grip on the pit before the Scarabs really get their claws in.
And they do have some of those options, right? As you said, Panda Cat's ultimate from the sky can contest. Whirlwind can contest with I'm a Monster. Fine, okay, might even be able to use Bat out of Hell, depending on how well they time their movement into this pit, and if the Scarabs prioritize DPS, even when they don't have comparable confirm. The Scarabs in a pretty comfortable position for this, though. A little over 8,000 gold out in the front, it looks like. And that should be too much for the Dragons to fight into effectively at this point. Still, though, the Fire Giant has spawned in. Some Inbound engages, and immediately the Dragons commit onto him. Mike on the other side of a wall again. As I'm a Monster hits next about no one. Mike does manage to retreat, though, but with that ultimate down, that should really decrease the odds the Jade Dragons have of doing much here.
Yeah, I mean, Panda Cat can go for the snipes, nowhere near the damage that I'm a Monster has. Sam could go for a dunk, not anywhere near as safe as an I'm a Monster over the wall is, so a really kind of bizarre ult. I mean, they didn't have anyone locked down enough for me to think they were going to get a kill, and like you said, it goes so wide that there's nobody really in the vicinity for Whirlwind to be hitting there. The Dragons, like, I'm going to say it this way, they're making a lot of misplays, not to detract from the Scarabs, who are playing incredibly well. Both are really true here, it's just the Scarabs look even better because of it.
And the Fire Giant already below half, but the Scarabs will release it. Mike gets pulled back in by the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel as Fino K, in between the flanks of this fight, forced to retreat. But the Dragons do a good job. Not a hard and commit, but Sam had already used his ult. So Mike goes up into his. That pulls 2, but there is no follow-up as Whirlwind forced to retreat incredibly low already, and Panda Cat stuck in the middle will drop down. Another huge kill for the Scarabs, and they are not done yet as Sam only able to find a bit of a wall stun there, but they keep pushing past. Mike falls as well. A double kill for SOT, who's played out of his mind this set. And now with only 2 members still standing, how can the Dragons hope to keep the Scarabs out of their base at this point? There are some low members, Layers, Inbound, Veronic. Not optimal, but this is going to be a difficult way to defend.
I mean, they're going to be uncomfortable, but Whirlwind doesn't have the ult. Crush is still going to be good. Maybe you just go for Phoenixes here? I don't know. You have a lot of time. Look, there's still 30 seconds. That Titan's vulnerable, but you're low, and you got to be precarious about this. Fino K and Whirlwind are enough to fight back.
And Layers has already fallen. Inbound too low to come in too, but the Titan is down to half, and Zapman free casting, no one putting their attention on him. He's still full HP. Zapman gets it done in the end. The Scarabs find a 2-1 victory over the Dragon. The Kings have fallen.
I mean, look, There's two ways to look at this one. This was not a great week for the Dragons at all. An unbeatable team, it seemed like, taken down twice in 1 week. And then the Scarabs, again, I cannot understate this. What a turnaround. This team did not look anywhere near this good in literally any other set. Even the one they won didn't look as good as this set they played this time around. Game 1, I think they needed to clean up some neutral objectives, and then they did exactly that for games 2 and 3. Once they had that control, they were able to win the fights, which they were already doing, and take control of the map, which is something the Dragons typically pride themselves on. This was a really good turnaround from them, and I hope it is not a one-time occurrence and we get to see this consistently through the rest of the first phase.
I'll tell you who's real happy about it, the Leviathans out there who were vying for that first place spot. Made easier for them now. There's 2 losses for the Dragons. A huge turnaround for the Scarabs. Congrats to them. We're going to take a quick break, then be right back to go over exactly how they got it done.
Wow. I think that's all you got to say here, Mifflin. Wow. The Solar Scarabs in 3 games take down the Jade Dragons, and Mifflin, in similar fashion to what we saw on Friday, it's not like the Dragons are winning the entire game and then fumble and then the Scarabs somehow pick up a win. The Scarabs came to play, they had a game plan, and they executed against the Jade Dragons. This is a team for a long time that's been talking about just wait, give us time and then we'll climb is what they've been saying. And at least for today and hopefully many more weeks to come, this Scarabs team is here to play and they are starting to climb.
They look so good, man. I mean, shouts to Inbound. Really good initiations in Game 3. Nearly perfect at times. Starting off those fights on the right foot. SOT reprises his performance from Game 2. Able to just put out infinite pressure yet again. Hinduman can be quoted as saying, oh my god, SOT is just spinning. And then a double kill popped up on the screen. So that's how we got our glorious leader talking about this one too. Solar Scarabs, man, these guys, I don't think we can call them rookies anymore. I mean, they still are the rookies of the league, but they're looking so good.
And even with the loss on Friday that the Dragons faced, Dragons and Leviathans are these are the 2 teams on top of the league. Everyone's chasing them, right? So the fact that the Solar Scarabs were able to step up, find a big win over preseason and maybe even current season favorites to win, massive for this team. It's not like you're taking down a lower half of the league team, whatever. I mean, everyone's competitive this year, but I think the player cams there say it all. Lots to figure out now for the Jade Dragons. Mood at an all-time high for the Solar Scarabs. Here's what Weekend had to say about it afterwards. Scarabs popping or Dragons dropping? With the SPL Season Beef logo there. I'll give you the floor here, Miff. What's your take? I mean, we have to give.
Oh man.
Let me make sure that this is clear because the Scarabs did pop. I'll answer that half of that for you. The Scarabs played incredibly well today, and nothing we can say will take that away from them. And tweets will just continue to roll here. If you're not on Twitter right now, go look.
Get there.
We're giving you some of the highlights, but there's a lot. But the Dragons have something to figure out here. Here's what Adapting had to say. The rookie squad taking down the established world-class Dragons. What is going on? Wish I could tell you, Adapting, because I'm not sure. The Smite Pro League world's been turned upside down. First by the Bolts and now by the Solar Scarabs, who came to play here in this set. 4:05 for Zapman in the winner Game 3. SOT and Layers showed up as well. I have to give shout-outs to my man Layers. I thought he played lights out even in the loss here in this set. I think the jungler for the Solar Scarabs, massive today in the victory.
Let's talk about jungle diff for just a split second. I'm looking at a 4,500 coming from Sam for Soccer, who is hailed as one of the best,
Same as
if
Inbound.
not the best, jungler out there. That is the same damage as Inbound. The support of the Scarabs were 1/3 the damage that Layers was able to put out in that one, man. It just felt like the Solar Scarabs came in so confident. But let's address that Weekend tweet for just a moment. Are the Dragons dropping? I think we could say definitively. I'm going to walk on this glass floor with no shoes. I can say definitively, yes. They did not play at their best here today. These guys are looking a little bit lost. And if I had to guess why, maybe they're a little bit shaken up by the beef we saw on Twitter a couple days ago.
Look, it's an easy answer, right? Because they lost 2 sets this weekend after having not lost a single game all year long, much less a set. But you know who is playing their best in this set? The Solar Scarabs. They walk over the Jade Dragons in back-to-back game here. There was a lot of back and forth on Twitter as well, from Zapman to Panda Cat. Now the whole Twitter world on fire once again. We've loved hearing it here this weekend. We'll jump down to an interview. Finch is standing with the man himself. Zapman joins us for the interview.
Thanks, Dolson. I do indeed have Zapman here with me. And Zapman, I know you got to be feeling good, my man, off that win. But talk to me in particular about what some of these young guys on your team have done. Really, Layers and Baronic, who I think stepped up for you guys in a big way today. What do they mean to this team, man?
Definitely. Beating the Dragons is a humongous confidence booster for our guys. And, you know, with all this talk about Friends League and stuff like that, this was a big vindication for my boys as well. And all week, and basically when we started forming as a team, we've been, you know, practicing the fundamentals, trying to get on the same page, doing things in a smart way. And I just want to give all the credit to, you know, my 4 teammates and Slaney. They put in so much work. And, you know, if you could listen to Bobby's comms, they were amazing. Layer Saw talking together, playing together, and Baronic just doing his thing in the back line. So I'm really proud of my team.
Yeah, and I think you've got a lot of reason to. Let's take a look at what you've been saying. Maybe stick to winning first, Panda Cat. Now, you seem to have these guys' number, whether they're Ghost or the Jade Dragons or what have you. They have a hard time beating you, man. Is there anything in particular in that matchup you feel like you got figured out?
I think I kind of live rent-free in their heads. I don't know. They just keep coming at me all the time. You know, their fans come at me. They come at me. But, I mean, it's been 3 years now at Worlds. Now right here, you know, get bugged. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. Just funny.
Well, can you go into, like, how the flow of this set was in particular? Because you guys lose game one, but it was essentially off one play, and the game ended in a heartbeat. Did you guys know, hey, we were hanging in that game. We had a good shot. We can definitely bounce this back?
Yeah, for sure. That was one of the reasons why we didn't ban Scylla game 3, right? We had a feeling they were going to first pick the Scylla. You know, Tower Boy's got to stay close to the tower with that Scylla 3, so definitely thought he was going to pick that up. And but we weren't scared of it. We knew game one we made a bunch of mistakes, and we were in that game, and we knew we could have won that game. So we weren't too worried about their Scylla pick, and then them picking the Scylla. We figured we might take Final K off his comfort pick of King Arthur, and Sot. I don't know. Sot just. I mean, you guys watched that. He played lights out. I couldn't be more impressed by Solar Troll. And, yeah, we kind of just knew what they were doing. We had our game plan, and we executed.
It's a pretty good game plan that you got. Whatever you guys have, maybe wrap it up. Keep that on the side for later because you guys look pretty good. There's that, man. Thanks for taking some time to talk to me, man. Congrats on the win. We'll get it back over to the desk to have them close things out.
Thank you.
And so just like that, a whirlwind weekend. And the SPL comes to a close. Unfortunately for the Jade Dragons and Jade Dragon fans, the whirlwind is happening at their feet. The Jade Dragons dropped 2 out of 2 sets here this weekend after not losing a single game all phase long. Mifflin, I don't know, man. I don't know how you take a deep breath out of that one and just kind of sit back and enjoy what happened here. Look back at this week in the SPL. Tartarus Titans start off with a win over the Valkyries. Olympus Bolts hand the Jade Dragons their first not only game loss but set loss of the year. Friday, 3 p.m. that game happened. And then moving on down the list here, Jade Dragons lose again to the Solar Scarabs to round out the weekend with some good sets there in the middle. Leviathans continue to roll. Olympus Bolts slip up a little bit here, Mifflin. There is seemingly way too much, I think, to take away. Our waiting room segment between Finch and I is going to be hard-pressed to fit everything in. With all of this, though, Atlantis Leviathans in sole possession of first place. The quiet killers in the Atlantis Leviathans retain their first place spot after a chance for not only the Bolts but also the Dragons to tie for first place today with wins. Neither of the two were able to get it done. The Camelot Kings now tied for that second place spot. And so Jade Dragons, Camelot Kings, Olympus Bolts, all they're tied for second. All these other teams starting to catch up a little bit here. Mifflin, Valhalla, Valkyries, Oni Warriors, still some room to grow. But, I mean, there really is seemingly just way too much to talk about after a wild weekend in the SPL.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. I was just sitting here refreshing Hurriewin's Twitter, man. Just last time Ben gave an interview like that, my man blew up, so I'm trying to keep track of that Smite beef. Look, this is an absolutely wild state for the league. The Atlantis Leviathans are now in a position where they can pull themselves pretty far ahead as far as standings go. Solar Scarabs finally getting some separation from the bottom as well, 2 and 4, pulling away from both the Warriors and the Valkyries. The league is starting to shake out, and I'm not sure that anyone had it shaking out this way. I know for a fact the community, as a whole, lost a lot of points voting on both Jade Dragon sets this week, man. It is, yeah, me too. I was at 72%. Yeah, no longer. I'm probably down to like in my mid-50s. This is a wild time to be a Smite fan.
The 78% kid. I was alone at the top of the pick right there for the casters after. Okay, give me about half a second, Miff, and I'll tell you that I'm about to be at 50% after this weekend. I got literally every set wrong, except for the Leviathans over the Valkyries. That's all I got right here this weekend. I had the Dragons over the Bolts. I had the Valkyries over the Titans, so I was 0 for 2 on Friday. And then I picked Warriors over the Titans, so I lost there. I did get the Leviathans set right, so thank you, Leviathans. And then I picked Bolts and Dragons here today. I literally went 1 for 6 on my picks here this week, so I don't know what percentage that is, but it's not 78%. And we're all taking a pretty deep dive here. I was in first amongst all you guys, and I can't say that any longer. what is your? Are you making? You're just getting joy out of the fact that I'm tanking now in the percentage settings. What is your?
No.
What's your prescription now? If you're Kabam, you're backstage here with the Jade Dragons. What's the prescription moving forward for a team that had a rough weekend?
Oh, well, I'd probably deactivate their social medias first and foremost, right? We don't want them seeing what can only amount to be a crazy amount of smack talk on the timeline, right? You want them recovering their mental a little bit, maybe some good old-fashioned good dinners, I guess. Take them out, get them something to eat. Like, you gotta reset the mental there, man. And Mike needs some protein. Take them where they want to go. If they like Six Flags, head there too. Kabam, you got your work cut out for you, bud. I'm not jealous of having to bring some mentals back in place.
Hey, and with that, maybe the unsung hero of this Scarab squad, Slaney's obviously done a great job with this Scarabs team, coaching behind the scenes, getting them ready to go week in, week out. Unbelievable weekend in the SPL. I don't know how we're ever going to top that. Oh, I have an idea. Let's add one more day of the SPL moving forward. Does that sound good to you, Mifflin? Yeah, the SPL is on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday now. SEC beforehand, that'll start at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And then Thursday through Sunday, I'll say it again, Thursday through Sunday, we'll have 2 sets of SPL starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Everyone, go. No, Mifflin, I was getting into it there. We're about to round out the show. Thursday is when we're starting off.
Thursday.
The SPL Thursday.
After
Correct,
Wednesday.
Mifflin. Thank you very much.
And
After
through
Wednesday,
Sunday.
that's right. Music, play Mifflin out, please. We'll see you on Thursday for more SEC and SPL.
Pitch it!
Get him off.